Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first semi-final of the Binome Manufacturer Endurance Elite Cup Season 6 2021, and we are in Pool B. We're back circuit side tonight at Suzuka. It's 5 o'clock in the morning local time as our drivers are getting ready to get underway with the first of the two semi-final rounds. And as mentioned, we'll be looking at one half of the field, the Pool B field, and we've got some very fast drivers ready and raring to go. And we'll be bringing you all the action over the course of the entirety of the race as our drivers try to secure their places in the grand final in only 2 weeks' time. But before we can get to introduce our drivers, let's do a very quick recap of how we got here so far and what we can expect over the semi-final. So we had 3 rounds over the course of the quarter-final. We had a grand total of 21 teams, or 20 to 21 teams, if our memory serves us well, ranging from Pool A to Pool C. We had 3 pools, and we used 3 rounds in the quarter-finals to determine which drivers would progress to the semi-final. The idea being that our drivers would accrue points over the course of each individual race in order to field as many points for themselves and also their representative teams, and then come the end of the 3 rounds with a number of mix-ups over the course of the rounds based on people's performance. The top 14 teams would progress to the semi-final, and you'll be seeing 7 of those teams here tonight, which we'll introduce very shortly for you. We've got 14 drivers, albeit I believe one driver's had to withdraw at short notice due to personal circumstances, so we're going to have approximately 13 drivers, and it will be go, 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 lights out, and away we go come the hour. So at 8 o'clock my time, British Summer Time, or UTC +1, based on the clock in the top right corner of your screen as seen now. Now on this journey, of course, we're going to have 2 rounds, and come the end of the 2 rounds, it will be the top 7 teams that progress to the grand final, where they'll be competing over 4 weeks of racing to see who is the best of the best, and will be taking home their championship crown for Season 6, of course. Without further ado then, let's get down to the track and start to introduce our drivers one by one and the teams they represent. We begin then by just taking a quick back look through our notes, making sure to introduce our drivers in order in terms of where they're going to qualify on the grid tonight. So give us 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, to get confirmation, and we'll also make sure that our keyboard is all working, as it should always do. But we will be starting off then with one V1's Mehdi 59. Now, many of you will remember Mehdi, the Frenchman, from last time out at Brands Hatch, with a dominant display in the Nissan GTR representing the Japanese manufacturer. And Mehdi had a phenomenal run at Brands Hatch, pushed it to the absolute limit and dominated by the margin of over what was effectively almost a lap compared to the rest of the field. Albeit, Mehdi did have one instance where he almost got it completely wrong, binned it into the wall and had to come in and fix heavy damage on the vehicle, but Mehdi was a dominant force, pushing it beyond the limits and absolutely taking home the win by a huge margin. And we'll look forward to seeing what the Nissan GTR driver is able to do tonight. As we say hello to those of you tuning into the chat so far, and we hope you've had a good bank holiday Monday or a good start to your week, including Zeronic. Hope you're all well. So Mehdi will be lining up on the front row, and alongside him tonight will be one Nico, who, as we look around here, we'll try and find Nico for you very shortly. We haven't got Nico here currently, although I believe Nico may actually be replaced by V1's Miro, and Miro, of course, sat here in the pit lane, also the other Nissan GTR driver. And Miro, last time out at what was Brands Hatch, having a very difficult time of things after a very tough start where things went horrifically wrong. Started on a recovery drive, had a great battle with some of the guys up towards the front of the field, particularly from Team TC. A great battle ensued between the Nissan GTR of Miro and the TC drivers. As my apologies, I've just had to confirm Nico is in the lobby, but Miro last time out having that great battle only to disconnect at the worst possible time. But I believe, looking at our list right now, Miro is somewhere due to start tonight on tonight's field, but we haven't quite got a place for him right now. I will get back to you shortly with confirmation of that. So getting things a little bit confused here, but 1 second. But what I can confirm is that our driver who will be starting at P2 tonight is definitely Nico, and this is Nico JVT right here, the Frenchman representing Team TC, again bringing out the Mazda RX Vision as we saw last time out at Brands Hatch. Good teamwork by the TC guys of Nico and Cobra, and you'll see Cobra very shortly. And they weren't able to take the fight to Medi in the end in the GTR, but they made that Mazda RX Vision work. And do keep in mind that as of tonight, the Mazda RX Vision has received a balance of performance change where 12 kilograms of mass has been added to the car in order to try and mitigate its overall success in terms of tyre life. So the car is going to be a little bit more difficult on its tyres compared to what we have previously seen, but I'm sure our drivers will have already made adjustments to that and will be able to deal with that accordingly. So Nico will be starting at P2 tonight, and then his teammate Cobra will be starting in at P3. Cobra right now making his way around the circuit in the other Mazda RX Vision from Team TC. The Frenchman here making his way up towards Spoon right now, as all of our drivers are being asked to come out into the paddock, if not out into the track completely, so the grid can be set by our trackside steward and race lobby host, and that is GTS-BOCA's Tosh. We say hello to Tosh again, as he has been our host throughout all the races we have broadcast so far. And do remember, Tosh is also broadcasting in French, whereas I'm broadcasting the English language tonight. So without further ado, we'll get back to talking about our drivers. So we've got Cobra who's going to be lined up in P3, and then in P4 it is going to be one Zephyx Bandit. Now many of you will know Bandit from some of the other series that we've seen him racing, and I believe Bandit is making his way out onto the circuit right now. Driving in the Nissan GTR, the Zephyx drivers representing the Japanese manufacturer as well. The Raccoon liveried mobile here, as the Zephyx guys like to refer to some of their drivers. They're aspirational and professional Raccoon racers, and we see that the Frenchman here making his way through the chicanes here as he makes his way to the end of Sector 1 and charges upwards and onwards. And we look forward to seeing what the Zephyx drivers can do, and Bandit we know is a phenomenally fast driver within the Zephyx team and one of those top split drivers within the FIA races within GT Sport, so I'm sure we'll be looking forward to seeing what he's able to achieve over the course of tonight's racing. He's going to be at the end of our second row. Our third row will then be started by GTB's Kimi, who is now racing under the flag of a GT Predator rather than GTBE, so he's had a team change since then. So it'll be GT Predator's Kimi, the Belgian driver running the Mazda RX Vision GT3, deciding to start his own new team. No bad blood between himself and the GTBE guys, but just deciding to part ways for the time being, but you never know how their paths could cross in the future. So Kimi here will be starting off in P5, and he'll be joined alongside by Raiko, the driver that he races alongside with, albeit I believe as we look around here, we're going to have a slight change of names as we try to find Raiko out in the lobby. I don't think Raiko is here right now, so we're waiting to find out when Raiko is going to arrive, but Raiko will be starting off in P6, but our driver who will be starting in P7, so starting off our fourth row, will be one Zephyx Dofra. So Dofra, the other Zephyx driver tonight, representing Nissan of course with the GTR GT3 Shots and Motorsport 2013 machinery, and Dofra a very fast driver as well, and looking to start on those mediums by the looks of things, or at least that's what he's starting with at the moment, although he may change that in due course. But he will be starting in what is P7, so starting off our fourth row on the grid, and he will be joined by Captain Rob, who I believe is currently in the lobby. And here is Captain Rob representing Aston Martin with the V12 Vantage GT3 from the T2F team, the Frenchman who we haven't seen before in the lobbies that we've broadcast in, but has made his way into Pool B, and we look forward to seeing what Captain Rob is able to achieve tonight. And the T2F guys being quite a fast sports team within the GT Sport community, albeit perhaps not as well known as they should be, but he'll definitely be looking to make a statement tonight, will Captain Rob. Jester will be starting off our fifth row of the grid in P9, and we're just trying to find Jester around the lobby right now. I don't think he's actually here or he's readied up, so we are still waiting for Jester to arrive. He'll be starting in P9, and then it will be Mostro, who has recently just joined the lobby, I believe, who will be starting in P10. And again, we are trying to find Mostro's car right now, but it's not readied up at this point in time. We then got driver Breton, who is our other T2F driver, who's currently parked up at the start of turn 1, and I believe he's just retracted himself back to the pits. As we see, Mostro has finally arrived, so he's representing V3R. But driver Breton will be starting in P11, representing Aston Martin. As we see, he's parked in that V12 Vantage GT3, and we will be looking forward to see as we're getting the confirmation that Jester has been replaced with Goose at the very last moment for V3R, so that explains why we couldn't see Jester earlier along. So as we look around once again, we're just going to see if any of the V3R drivers are currently out. No, they're not out on circuits. We continue down the order. I regret to inform you, unfortunately, that IGTSH will only be represented by one driver tonight. Their lead driver, who is going to be starting in P12, that was Kende. IGTSH's Kende is not able to take part due to personal circumstances, and so it will only be IGTSH's Pajci, the Hungarian driver here, who will be racing in the Aston Martin Vantage V12 GT3, and he'll be looking forward to seeing what he's able to do, being the sole representative of the Hungarian team. And we know Pajci is a very fast driver. Again, if not found in top split lobbies and FIA races, normally found in the second split or third split as a minimum, but normally competing for those top split lobbies, and we look forward to seeing what the Hungarian driver is able to do. And then last but not least, in terms of line-up on our grid, I believe is going to actually be Miro after he had to withdraw from the Brands Hatch race, and Miro we did introduce earlier. So that confirms everything. And just to introduce the V3R drivers for you, it'll be V3R's Goose, who is driving in that Toyota Super Racing concept, representing the Japanese manufacturer in one of the most rounded cars in terms of all of them, and he will be starting in just a slot, which will be in P9, and Mastroia's teammate will be starting behind him in P10. The two drivers line up side by side effectively on the grid, also representing Toyota, both French drivers looking to achieve what they possibly can tonight and get themselves off to a good start for this semi-final. Now, we haven't got long to go before we get underway with the racing in only a couple of minutes time. The countdown is almost complete as things are just getting sorted with regards to who's who and who's replacing who, but we are expecting a grid of 13 drivers here as everybody is getting readied up. Now, what to expect tonight? Well, as I said previously, the Mazda RX Vision has been neutered somewhat in terms of 12 kilograms of weight has been added to the car, so that means its tyre life will not be as strong, or the car will be a little bit more difficult to manage the tyres. However, the flip side of the coin will be that's the only balance of performance change that we have seen since the previous set of races. So it'll be down to whether the Mazda is heavily affected. Now, personally, I reckon the Mazda is not going to feel too much pain because of that additional weight, albeit time will tell. I think it will take away perhaps 1 or 2 laps worth of tyre life, particularly on the racing soft tyre, where it's critical to get the most out of the grippiest tyre, which will provide the fastest lap times. But will it make that overall difference in terms of strategies? I'm quite doubtful, although Suzuka, saying that, is quite an aggressive circuit for tyre wear, given the fact that it's got a multitude of sectors, sector 1 being a handling dominant sector, medium speed corners, then we've got sector 2, which again is medium speed flowing corners, plus also an acceleration zone, particularly coming out the second of the 2 Degnas, and then we've got the third sector, which has the very difficult hairpin, where you've got that very low speed and a very strong acceleration zone there for a GT3 car, going all the way through to Spoon and then onto the back straight. And then the final sector, we have got a chicane, which will be very aggressive on those front tyres, braking from 130R all the way down. But we'll take you around on a lap very shortly, as we've got 2 minutes to go before we get underway. And whilst we've got a couple of minutes to go, if you just give me 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for that, I just had to go sort something out off stream. But with that sorted, I should also introduce myself. That's one thing I haven't done yet. So my name's Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'm your English broadcaster for the Binome Elite Endurance Manufacturer Cup Season 6 2021 in partnership with the GTS-BOCA community. And, well, that's enough from me. Let's continue with the racing and jump on board with TC Cobra 45 for a lap. So coming out the final corner then on a fresh set of racing softs, he's going to come around on the right hand side here, and I don't know if he's actually going to reset because this was a fast lap. But he's going to pop over to the left hand side and rejoin the racing line. Normally you'd stay all the way over to the left out the final chicane if you're going for the racing line. Coming down to turn 1 then, braking out that 50 board, trail braking in on the apex curve there before stamping down the brakes into turn 2, although he's doing very little braking there. He's trying to save the tyres as much as possible, is Cobra. Now coming up through turn 3, the first of a multitude of left to right sequences here, then turn 4, and now flying up the hill towards turn 5, going into another left-hander here, a very aggressive uphill left-hander before you've got the downhill right-hander of turn 6, making his way through the corner right now with a little bit of lag, but he's nailed it there. And now turn 7, the end of sector 1, up through the flowing left-hander of turn 7, trying to keep it as close to that apex curve as possible. Very nicely done there by Cobra. And now he's got a long charge all the way around to the first of the 2 Degnas. Turn 8 coming up, braking hard into Degna 1, and then following through, cutting over the apex curve into Degna 2, cutting even tight onto the apex curve. And in fact, we have got the countdown for the race now, so we are going to hop away Time to give you that full lap. And there's the turn 10 hairpin right here, the slowest corner on the circuit effectively. But the countdown is set, 10 seconds to go. 2-hour endurance race about to kick off. Who is going to be crowned the winner of Pool B at Suzuka? Let's find out. So as we pan down to the rolling start procedure, we will be led away by V1's Medi off the left-hand side of your camera, and Nico JVT will be following behind. There will be Cobra and Zephyx Bandit. But look, what can Miro do from the right on the back of the grid in P12? So as the rolling start procedure gets underway, a good number of our drivers will be starting on that chicane, which means the field will break open a little bit. But nonetheless, as we're getting around that final corner, Medi's going to take us away when the countdown goes 3, 2, 1, and it's lights out and away we go. And Medi immediately going over to that racing line, and all of our drivers will follow suit as they all make their way underway for the 2-hour endurance race of Suzuka. Medi charging down into turn 1 as all of our drivers try to weave a little bit to get some heat into the tyres. You can see in particular Nico doing that, and also I think it was GTP Predators Adri also doing the same there as they make their way through the first 2 corners here. And you can see Nico already falling a little bit away from Medi. Medi, I think, going for an early break to try and sprint away from the field as the TC drivers are holding in formation right now, and Bandit is close behind them. Now, in terms of the difference between the 2 cars, you do have to keep in mind that Nissan GTR has got a very aggressive turbo, which gives it a lot of performance in the lower gears, whereas the Mazdas here with their rotary engines do take a little bit more time to build up that acceleration. And we can see already how GT Predators Kimi is starting to fall back away from Bandit, and Bandit is on a charge right now, trying to get as close as possible to the rear of Cobra. I think he's going to try and effect a move as soon as possible, because he'll recognise the fact that if those Mazdas are allowed to get into a comfort zone and break away, they'll become more difficult to catch as we go deeper and deeper into this opening stint. But as we look further back right now with Bandit catching up, we can see that his teammate Zofra, by comparison, just a little way back from the GT Predator team right now, but getting closer and closer. And then it's T2F Captain Rob in P8 right now, who's chasing after Zofra and not closing up enough. Mostro, meanwhile, in P9. I think Mostro's actually had a really good start by comparison, as we do see that one driver has fallen quite a way down the field, and Padge in particular. What has happened to Padge? I'm not 100% sure, but Padge has had something go wrong somewhere, because he's dropped all the way down the order, and we caught that off camera. We didn't manage to catch that on camera. It's happened off camera as we see all of our drivers making their way through Spoon right now, and T2F's driver Brenton going for a move on Mostro there in the second part of Spoon and not able to make it work. But will he now go for the attack into 130R? If he's going to do it, it's going to be early on, and he'll need to signal his intent, because otherwise Mostro will cut his nose off into the corner. Driver Breton goes to the move. He makes it count, or does he, as they come down into the chicane? Then Mostro looking to the outside to the racing line, and driver Breton holding defensive here. But after lap 1, it is Medi leading the field away by comparison with Cobra and Nico JVT. They swap places, the 2 of them. Bandit in P4 right now, Kimi in P5, Adrian P6, then it's Doffer in P7, Captain Rob in P8. Driver Breton moved up to P9 with that pass on Mostro in 130R. Then we've got B3R's Mostro in P10, as we can see that one driver's already coming to the pits, and that's Miro coming into the pits, as Padge picked up a 1-second penalty for track limits at the chicane, the Casio Triangle chicane. Goose in P12 and Miro into the pits. And remember, we do have an extended pit time loss now at Suzuka, which amounts to approximately, if I remember correctly, 20 seconds for a tyre change alone, and it looks though Miro was getting the hards out the way immediately to give himself a better run later on. I think he's trying to go for that aggressive strategy, which we have seen from Miro previously, where he gets the he gets the mandatory compound out the way as soon as possible, either the medium and the hard, and then can go attack on the softs all the way to the end. Albeit it means he will find himself a long way down on our drivers, but he'll give himself clear out on track in order to be able to chase after them. So we should expect that Miro is going to start setting close to fastest laps, i.e. matching his teammate Medi's times overall over the next few laps on a set of softs, if he's gone to the softs, if not a set of mediums. But what we can see is starting to form right now. If we look back from what is effectively Cobra 45, you can see a train of cars is starting to create a formation up into Spoon, and it is Cobra at the lead of that pack. Meanwhile, you've got Bandit, who's a bit further back right now, and as they make their way through Spoon. I think it's the case, effectively, the Mazda drivers, particularly the TC drivers, are just trying to do as much tyre saving as they possibly can right now, and trying to make these stints as long as possible by comparison with the GTR drivers. Captain Rob, meanwhile, that Aston Martin's going to be in a bit of a difficult position, because the Aston Martin isn't terrible in its tyres, but it's not great either, and it's one of those cars where you want to preferably just be a little bit more aggressive, particularly because the fuel consumption of Aston Martin, as Rob goes wide at 130R, a little bit of dirty air there off of Doffra's car, I think just making the difference in terms of his available downforce through the corner, and Captain Rob getting away with it there in terms of not having a major incident using the runoff area, as we see Doffra into the pits to shake off the mediums along with Bandit. So the Zephyx drivers going for 2 laps on the mediums and then changing them out. So that is quite a tactical idea there, in the fact they've gone for the medium quite early on, so they've removed that tyre, they've only got the hard to run, and perhaps they're doing this to essentially gap themselves around the field right now, and then they'll give themselves some clear air, because Padge is going to come through, and it's going to be Goose who comes through behind him. Now, do they clear Goose? Well, Bandit's now coming out of the pits, and Goose is going to be just ahead. I don't think this is what the Zephyx guys will have wanted. The fact they've come out just behind Goose, and Goose, for reference, ladies and gentlemen, is on a set of hard tyres right now, and he's running these hard tyres for a period of time, so that means Goose has the potential to hold up Team Zephyx here and cause major problems on their opening sets of stints, and Bandit will be looking to clear V3R's Goose as soon as possible. Now, will he be able to do it? That's the question. If he's going to do it, it's going to be up towards turn 7, perhaps in the run to Degner 1, but he's going to have to be mindful of that. Bandit going for the cutback, and he can't find a way through as Goose parks it on the apex a little bit. They're side by side in the long run to Degner 1, but Bandit has not made a move, being able to stick it, and as a result, Goose is now costing him huge time here as they come down into Degner 2, and this is disastrous for Bandit earlier because he's losing time by the mile, and he's finally got himself alongside Goose, but Goose is on the inside for the turn 10 hairpin as they go up into the corner. I think Goose is going to try and hold it to the inside, and he backs out at the last one. I think Goose realises he's done enough to damage the strategy of Team Zephyx, and now he needs to carry on with his race. Nice idea though for Goose to essentially hold up Bandit through the more technical sector where it's hard to overtake, and then just gradually let the pass happen in one of the more difficult corners to defend out, where it's going to cost too much time. But right now up front we can see that Medi is running away with 158.0 on his previous lap, so that is lap number 2. And what he set on lap number 3 as he comes across the line here, 7.4 seconds clear of the field of 57.8, so he's definitely breaking away as Medi. He's going for the breakaway, which we saw at Brands Hatch last week, where he's just putting all the pace up front and trying to clear the field to give himself all the space out on track. We can see that the TC guys, meanwhile, holding formation, a gap between them of only 9/10 of a second, and Cobra and Nico working together here to make sure they don't trip over one another, but give each other enough space out on circuit to operate effectively. But as the racing continues, and we say hello to Sweet Lurb in chat who's just joined us, we can see that GT Predators Kimmy in P4 right now, only 2.2 seconds down on the Frenchman ahead of Team TC, and we can see that his teammate of Adri just staying in a comfortable position right now, again running in formation. And we have seen this time and time again from the Mazda drivers, in the fact that when they've got that clear air, or it's just them and their teammate, they try to run together to give themselves that overall time out on circuit and manage those tyres as much as they possibly can. As they make their way down into the 2 Degners here, you can see AG taking a little bit more of a racing line, an aggressive racing line, that compared to Kimi, and I think AG may be swapping places with Kimi in short order. Meanwhile, behind them we can see that driver Breton, with the initial set of pit stops, is up into P7 right now, and it's worth at this point having a look back. We can see that Mostro in fact is being hounded by Padge C, and Mostro is on the hard tyres, whereas I believe Padge C is on the medium compound, and they come into the turn 10 hairpin, and Padge looks to his side. Mostro doesn't defend it too hard here, much like his teammate, I think just trying to cost little bits of time, and Padge now in a drag race versus Mostro. And do keep in mind, whilst the Aston Martin has the better acceleration in the lower gears, that Supra in 4th gear in particular is no slouch with its turbo when it kicks in, but they're going to go side by side up into Spoon, and it looks like Padge C is going to take it as Mostro backs out of going side by side through the first part of Spoon, and Mostro you could see now sliding a little bit through the second part with those hard tyres not offering the grip, plus the fact he's lost the downforce through the dirty air of Padge C's Aston Martin ahead of him. But Padge C now up into P8 and charging after the rest of the field, as we see meanwhile that Bandit has broken away from Dofra a little bit, and Dofra has cleared Goose. Meanwhile, Goose now 4.7 seconds down the road, but Dofra losing a lot of time, losing about a second to his teammate there, and Goose right now throwing in an interesting spanner for anybody who comes out behind him, and indeed the same with Mostro. The 2 V3R drivers going long on their hard tyres here, and whether this is optimal or not, time will tell, but it's definitely putting a conundrum into the mix as Mostro comes into the pits from what was P8 at the time. As he's coming into the pits here, the crew are out. Are we expecting a double stop from the V3R guys? We just checked back, and yep, it is a double stop, so they're getting rid of the hard tyre after 4 laps. So as a result of that, they're now going to be moving on to what is most likely the soft compound, although they may go for the medium just to get that out of the way as well. But let's give you a quick status check in terms of tyres. We can see that Mehdi started the race on the softs as we predicted. Meanwhile, we can see that Cobra, the first of the 2 TC drivers, is on those softs, as will be his teammate most likely, given they're running so close. Although Nico has got some more aggressive tyre wear on that front right, it's worth noting. There's grain in pickup already on that front right, and I think he's perhaps having a bit of difficulty running in the dirty air of his teammate, and that's why they've got that gap of 9/10. Nico just feeling that the dirty air is putting excessive wear onto those front tyres. Behind him, however, we can see that the 2 GT Predator drivers of Kimi and AG getting ever closer, and I do think at some point here there is going to be a position swap as mandated by team orders perhaps, because right now I would say that Kimi is perhaps just affecting AG's race a little bit, unless AG is trying to use Kimi to do a lot of fuel saving and they've agreed this as a strategy. But both drivers also on those racing softs, and then we look further back to Captain Rob, we can see that the T2F driver in the Aston Martin, the lead Aston Martin driver right now on those softs, but already taking a sizable chunk of life out of that front right tyre. The Aston Martin being quite heavy in terms of loading the tyres under braking in the heavy braking zones, and I think Rob is starting to just feel that a little bit, and he'll feel it definitely through 130R, because the front engine rear wheel drive nature of the car means that the front tyres will be forced to do a lot more grip work here, as it will naturally want to understeer, and he gets it nice through 130R, but he's going to be aware of that. His teammate driver Breton a little bit less tyre wear by comparison, but again the same situation, and we can see that Padgety in the other Aston Martin for IGTSH doing his best here to chase after the guys ahead of him and also picking up significant tyre wear. All of these guys on the softs, and then it's Bandit as well on the soft, having made that tyre switch off of what was the medium after 2 laps. The Zephyx drivers doing that as a strategy between them, and they both went to the soft tyre and are now running around on circuit, Bandit and Doffer in P9 and P10. You've then got to go quite some way back to Miro right now, who started on the hard, got it out the way immediately, and is now running on the soft, albeit that soft has had a bit of life taken out of it. And then we have got the driver of V3R Mostro, who's gone to the medium, as has his teammates. So the V3R guys getting the tyres, the mandatory tyres, out the way as soon as humanly possible, so that way they can give themselves the best possible stints on the soft for the rest of the race, no doubt. But we can see that in that situation for P4 right now, pardon me, between Predators, Kimi and also Adri. As just to clarify for those wondering why we're not seeing Ford tonight, they are in Pool A, the Ford drivers. They're not represented here tonight in Pool B. We've got 2 pools running right now, and we're just broadcasting Pool B for you. We can see that Adri is definitely just feeling a bit more comfortable running behind Kimi right now. Kimi going a bit deep into turn 10, and I think it's a case right now that Kimi may just be starting to feel a little bit of pressure coming from the tyre wear, and perhaps this is where that balance of performance change for the Mazda, that extra 12 kilograms, is just starting to unsettle the Belgian a little bit, and this is something that he's going to have to get used to. Of course, he will have practiced for this race, but it's just coming into fruition that extra weight is just taking away a bit of the tyre life which the Mazda was building a reputation for. But as they make their way down to 130R, you can see that Adri is pulling slightly out of the slipstream of Kimi. I think he feels he's getting too close right now, and surely there is going to be a swap sometime soon. Alternatively, are they going to make something out of it in terms of a pit stop? As we see that Padgety has actually got past through driver Breton here. Now, we didn't catch that as Breton made a mistake somewhere. I would say he has, given the fact that the gap between himself and Padgety is up to almost 3 seconds. Driver Breton must have made a mistake somewhere, as we are going to check his lap time when he comes through here. His previous lap, for reference folks, was a 2:05. And we see him come across the line here, and his latest lap time is a 2:04.1. So driver Breton definitely made a mistake somewhere around on that lap, hence why Padgety has gained a place and has disappeared off into the distance, as Bandit is now chasing after Breton and getting ever closer. As we ride on board here with the Zephyx driver making his way now up into turn 3, and you're going to see here he's going to have to start to just turn in a little bit earlier for these corners because of the dirty off the Aston Martin, but the grip available to Bandit right now on those fresher soft tyres. And you can see he's trying to find a move already up into what is turn 6, but it's not a place to overtake. He's now going to go for potentially the cutback on apex of turn 7. Breton defending it here, but he's got the move, he's got the momentum, and Breton immediately, I think Breton lifted out of that a little bit there, feeling that the car was getting unsettled towards the exit curve of turn 7, because if he went wide there, that would have been fatal. He would have been going for the wall and such, but Bandit has made his way through and hasn't lost too much time because of running behind Breton. Would have lost about half a second running through the open opening sector, but Bandit making the moves and making his way up the field. The leads FX Motorsport driver here, as we see that Captain Rob and Padge coming to blows here. They're making their way down towards Spoon, and Padge on the outside right now, but will be on the inside for the start of Spoon as they come into the corner, and I think he's nailed this completely. He goes a little bit deep, but keeps it there, and Captain Rob comes back at him, but it's not enough. Padge was able to get it regained and under control, and now makes his way in the long run down towards 130R. Now, will Captain Rob come back at him? If he's going to, well, Padge is defending to the inside here, but surely if Captain Rob's going to go for it, he's got to get closer than that, because he can't make a move from that far back into 130R, with Padge taking the defensive line for as long as he possibly can. And as they make their way through the corner down into the Casio Triangle chicane, Padge has got the move done. A nice move there by Padge, a good sequence in Captain Rob, giving him the space to do so as well. Very respectful race between the pair of them as Rob comes into the pits from P7. So they feel, T2F, that those tyres were not going to go much longer, and indeed both drivers coming to the pits. It's a team stop, and that is going to free up a number of drivers further back. But meanwhile, up front, we can see that Medi now on a 14.5 second lead, and just really running off into the distance right now. His previous lap being a 1:58.0, and by comparison, to give you an idea of how the lap times are shaping up, we can see that the lead Mazda driver of Cobra 45 on a 59.7. So Medi really just running away right now and trying to milk as much of a distance as possible as they make their way through the first 15 minutes of this 2-hour endurance race. And we can see there, just under braking into Degner 2, Cobra going a little bit sideways over the apex curve there. The rear end just starting to come a bit loose now that tyre wear's kicking in on the Mazdas. And we can see further back that Kimi and Adrian, well, Adrian has made a mistake somewhere surely, because that gap of 4.5 seconds is huge. Now Adrian, I think, has gone off somewhere because he was running much closer to his teammate, but he has regained it and is still continuing to race here. So Adrian just probably running off somewhere else on the circuit, but no major mistake in terms of putting in the wall or picking up any damage. Do keep in mind that we have got heavy damage on here, so if our drivers do hit a wall, alternatively a barrier, or hit one another and pick up bumper, aero or engine damage or suspension damage, they will need to go get it repaired in the pits. They don't just automatically repair it out to the circuit. We don't have the healing sponge out on circuit today. As we see Bandit, they're going very deep into the first part of Spoon and almost running onto the AstroTurf there, and that's probably made Bandit's heart skip a beat very slightly. He is pushing it to the limit, is Bandit right now, as we can see that Miro has retired. We have had our first retirement of the race, and it is a retirement from Miro once again. That is disastrous for the V1 driver. That's a repeat of Brands Hatch, but it's much earlier in the race this time, and that means now we're down to 12 drivers remaining, 13 started, and it will all fall onto the shoulders of V1 Medi once again to bring a strong result home for the Team V1 as they make their way up onto lap number 9. And Medi right now leading by 15.7 seconds. I think Medi's doing more than enough right now to give himself enough space, albeit he hasn't got an overall pit stop over the rest of the field right now. The pit stop gap is approximately 20 seconds for a tyre change, as we said previously, but Medi doing everything he needs to right now just to run away a little bit. As we do see coming into the pits is IGTSH's Padge, and this is going to be close here with driver Breton. Well, yeah, it will be with driver Breton, as we see Breton actually coming into the pits from P10 to shake off the medium tyre here. And I believe Captain Rob has gone back to a set of softs. So this is a real big change up here in the fact that T2F drivers have decided to split their strategies earlier on. Breton going for the medium, Rob going for the soft. And perhaps they feel right now they are in a battle with the IGTSH driver. And as a result, they need to try and find a way to work themselves around Padge. As we see that Padge has come out of the pits. Also, he's putting fuel in the car right now. He's switched to a soft tyre and he's coming out of the pits. In fact, he's gone to the hard tyre there. Our data screen's just updating for you. He's going to the hard, and surely that's going to be to run the tyre for a brief period of time as he's cut over the white line there, and I think the stewards will be investigating that one, and he goes, oh goodness me, and Padge almost losing it completely there on the AstroTurf of turn 2, but he keeps it together, the IGTSH driver, and now presses on all the same. But that was near fatal for his driving aspirations in this race, but Padge presses onwards nonetheless. We can see already that Medi coming around to start lap 10 as Padge just gets underway with lap 9. That's the gap that's being built up at the front of the field right now as everybody is spaced out a little bit. And Cobra running away from his teammate now, starting to pull away from Nico. I think both drivers feeling that tyre wear, and Cobra reacting better to the tyre wear by comparison with Nico at this point in time, as we can see that both drivers are very similar amounts of tyre wear, albeit it would seem that Nico just falling away. Meanwhile, Kimi and AG running around, and we can see that Adri has brought that gap down over the last 2 laps by the region of what is about 0.8 of a second. It was 4.2 seconds when we last looked at it. It's now 3.4 seconds. So Kimi is being reeled in by his teammate. But again, I think it's more of the question of who is the more comfortable driving on worn tyres. And in the case of GT Predator, it is Adri over Kimi. But you can see, meanwhile, that Bandit, having chosen to clear the medium early on and then go to a set of softs, really close it up to Adri and Kimi right now. He's going to start off by attacking Adri, of course, as he makes his way through the first sector. Not too long to go before he gets to the end of sector 1, and now he can start to open up in the GTR as we get the more open corners here, as he comes over the brow of turn 7 then and charges into the first 2 Degners. And this is where the GTR really starts to come to life, because you've only got medium speed apexes. You don't have to worry about the turbo kicking the rear out as much, although Degner 2 can be a little bit spicy in that GTR, but Bandit handles it very nicely and flashing his lights to Adri. I think trying to get into Adri's head, but also say to Adri at the same time, come on, do you really want to fight me on those really old tyres? But of course Adri will have his own game plans in mind, and I think it may be the case that Adri is going to be a little bit defensive, particularly through Spoon, just to cost Bandit some time over the course of the 2 apexes there, because Bandit will want to maximise his time on those softs right now, and Adri may just prove to be a little bit of a roadblock. Indeed, as they go to Spoon here, Adri going very deep, and Adri goes off there through no fault of Bandit contacting where he fiddled those sides. Adri making a major mistake there of going wide and having to take to the escape road and also to the runoff area grass in order to get that car back under control. But it means both of the Zephyx drivers are now moving up a position. Bandit up into P5 and Dofra up into P6. And that's only 20 minutes of the race complete, folks. We've still got an hour and 40 minutes to go. And already, whilst we haven't seen too many overtakes out to the circuit so far, we have seen a lot of drivers having difficulty with the compounds here around the Suzuka circuit. As we see GT Predators, Kimi coming into the pits, and surely we're going to be seeing Adri coming soon as the pit crew come out to service Kimi's car. And Adri is into the pits as well. It's a double stop for the GT Predator team. But meanwhile, up front, we can see that Nico right now in P3, 4.4 seconds down on his T-Red, 8.6 seconds clear of Bandit and Dofra. And remembering the fact that these guys have yet to pit, so the top 3 have not pitted. They started on a set of softs, and they've yet to come off of those tyres. As we look back in the pits right now, and we can see that coming along to the start-finish line is V3R's Mostro. Now, will Mostro come out ahead of Adri? Well, given Adri had that off, Mostro has cleared Adri, but Kimi is only just up the road. Kimi has not been caught behind Mostro here. What about Goose? Does Adri come out ahead of Goose? He does indeed, because Goose, I believe, is all the way... Yep, Goose is all the way back on the timing line right now and making his way down towards turn 1. So Goose having a bit of a slow race right now, but then again, it's worth pointing out that Goose has got plenty of capacity to make up for lost time later on in the race as he makes his way through Sector 1. But Mostro in that position right now where he can cause some real damage to some other drivers' races, particularly to Adri, who finds himself coming out behind. Now Adri, what tire did Adri go to, you ask? Well, he went to the medium, as Mostro is also the medium right now, so the closing speed of Adri to Mostro will be gradual. It won't be that rapid, as we see Medi coming into the pits from the race lead, and on 22 litres of fuel remaining, I suspect he may be going for a medium or a hard switch, and that will mean he'll be doing the 1 lap magic on the harder on the medium, then switch into the other one, get them both out of the way, and of course go racing once again. Will TC Cobra 45 respond? Will he come into the pits? He does indeed come into the pits, and that's into P2. What about Nico? Do the TC drivers split their strategies? They do indeed, but Medi is already coming out of the pits. Medi going for the 1 lap magic strategy of going onto the hard tyre, but the TC drivers splitting their strategies here. This may prove profitable for them later on in the race. I think they're wary of the fact as well they've got the 2 Zephyx drivers who are really starting to come up through the field, having taken the medium tyre out of the equation, and they're now on their first racing soft stint. But they're making their way through to turn number 2. Once again, we see Bandit leading from Dofra, and Cobra right now putting a lot of fuel in the car and going to another set of softs. So Cobra opting to do 2 soft stints back to back on full fuel, and what that effectively means is that Cobra is going for the longer strategy here, as we can see behind. Meanwhile, Captain Roll in P6 right now, our lead Aston Martin driver, doing a very good job for T2F, just keeping it consistent, keeping it clean, and making his way around the circuit in due fashion, and just keeping that Aston Martin nicely planted. A flying car around here, not the optimal car for Suzuka, mind you, but still a very strong car here in the capable hands of the French driver, and we're seeing that right here being demonstrated. As we look behind, and we can see that Kimi is being caught up by Mostro now. In fact, that gap has come down to 1.7 seconds, albeit the Supra is a little bit weaker in Sector 1, but we will expect that indifference is going to be settled over the course of Sectors 2 and 3, where the two cars will be roughly equal, and the Supra will come more alive in Sector 4 in particular. But as they make their way through the two degnads once again, we can see as we ride on board with Mostro how he is hunting down the Mazda driver at a rapid rate of knots coming into the turn 10 hairpin. Now it's worth noting where Mostro was using first gear there over the apex curve of turn 10. He's essentially trying to attack the corner as much as possible. It will cost him a bit of tyre life as Medi comes into the pits off of the hard tyre. And in fact, we're just going to switch away from Mostro briefly. Does Nico come in as well? Nico does. Now they're both on the same amount of fuel, interestingly enough. Now does Nico try to follow suit with some one lap magic as Bandit into the pits and Doffer into the pits as well? So what does this mean for Cobra? Well, Cobra, remember, went for the refuel as Medi has now cleared his hard tyre out of the way. Now surely Medi is going to come back out in front of Cobra. And I think Cobra there actually took a little bit too much of a cut off of the Casio triangle, or has he? Hasn't picked up a track limits penalty there, so literally cutting it to your utmost limit as Cobra is going to come across the timing line here, and I believe Medi's going to be coming out on the left hand side of your screen, and Cobra has got past Medi. But of course remember that Medi has got his hard tyre out the way now, whereas Cobra has yet to do it. So to achieve this, Cobra has had to go to another set of softs. So this is going to really mix up the strategy now, and the fact that Medi has gone to the soft tyre and will be looking to do a long stint to it and maximise his time there. Bandit and Doffer are coming out behind, but they've both gone to the hard for some one lap magic, as we see that Bandit has done that, as has Doffer, and behind them Captain Rob. Well, Captain Rob, in fact, we missed that coming down to turn 1. We're so focused on Cobra and Medi. Captain Rob has come out ahead of Nico, and Nico right now not in a good spot and immediately going on the attack out of turn 7, but he can't find a way past because the Aston Martin's got the legs by comparison with Nico, so it's all topsy-turvy for Nico right now. Team TC succeeding in blocking off Medi, but in return Nico losing out track position to Captain Rob, and you can see just how much Nico wants to get past Captain Rob, and Captain Rob going as defensive as he possibly can, and in fact attacking Doffer into the turn 10 hairpin. Now I think Doffer made a bit of a mistake on the hard tyre there, because Doffer right now finds himself losing not one but perhaps 2 places, as we see Nico just can't find a way past even the Aston Martin on the Nissan because it hasn't got the acceleration, the Mazda. So this is a disaster for Nico because he needs the clear air right now and he's not got any of it. Instead he's being held up by 2 drivers and losing a huge amount of time as they all make their way out of Spoon and now charge down towards 130R. And watch this, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see that Nico will have the double toe, but the Aston Martin and the GTR have got so much pace by comparison, but Doffer is going for the move on Rob here. It's all chop and change, and Doffer goes to the move. He goes to the inside. He goes a little bit wide, does Doffer, and he runs out to the Astro turn, but keeps it together. 2 wheels still on track. He then goes defensive versus Nico into Casio triangle, but Nico makes it through here, and I think it was the case that Doffer tried to cost those guys as much time as possible as he comes into the pits off of the hard tyre. But Nico will not be happy with that. He'll know that has cost him huge time, as we can see that I think Medi has got the move done on Cobra. So they were coming down the start-finish straight here down towards turn 1 on lap 14. Medi was in the slipstream of Cobra. And does he go for it up the inside into turn 1, or is it a late move into turn 2? No, it's into turn 1, and I think Cobra lifted out of it there, knowing he wasn't going to be able to defend it too well through the corner. So that was very close there, but we can see that Cobra now has been cleared by Medi, and Medi carries on his merry way, charging around the circuit here on those racing soft tyres, looking to open up the stint once again. But we can see that Captain Rob, meanwhile, in P3, I think T2F are really playing a smart game here with Captain Rob, and I think Rob is doing a fantastic job of this strategy in the fact that he is going as long as he possibly can and just being out there and being a nuisance to everyone. And you can see, look at the tyre wear there, they front-loaded the tyre wear onto the front tyres and taking it away from the rears as much as possible, and I think Captain Rob has been adjusting to this on the fly, and that's why he's been able to hold on for so long. And Nico in that Mazda, look how close Nico is. As we give you the onboard perspective here, we're actually jumping to the hood here. You can see he's only 0.2 of a second down, but he can't close up. The Mazda just doesn't have that engine power, and it means that Rob right now is in such a strong position, and Nico, to get past, has to effectively find a move into other tighter corners and can lunge it or get such a strong runoff, as Rob right now just simply gets on the power and says, what, Mazda, I don't have to worry about it, surely. And he holds in the centre of the circuit here in the long run down to 130R. But Nico looks at the move. He's got the momentum. He's managed to get some of it there, and he's on the inside of Rob. They go into 130R, and Rob has gone off. He's gone wide, but he rejoins the circuit. I think Rob there just using the runoff area essentially to make sure that he didn't come into contact with Nico. And Rob, I think, will be coming into the pits in a very short order to complete this stint. I think he's probably got 1 or 2 more laps there, as we can see that Kimi is now catching up behind him. GT Predators Kimi in P5 as Mostro comes into the pits to complete his racing medium stint. The Super Driver, the lead of our 2 Super Drivers, and will we see the same from Goose? Well, Bandit going around the outside of Goose there at Casio Triangle, and Bandit now coming through, and we can see that Goose is indeed coming into the pits. So the V3R drivers going for those medium stints and getting about the way, and now I'm assuming they're going to be jumping onto the soft tyres for the rest of the race, because we have seen on both the medium and the hard so far. It has been absolutely frantic in the last couple of minutes. It's really come to life now. The strategies are starting to cross over with one another. And the drivers right now, personally in my opinion, folks, the driver right now who is in such a strong position is this man right here, T2S Captain Rob, because he has essentially found himself moving up the field through just running the strategy as long as possible, those racing softs. And he's been a nuisance to everybody and cost everyone a lot of time, not because he's fighting hard, but because that Aston Martin is so well placed with regards to its acceleration out of the corners. It just goes through the gears like wildfire, as we can see going through turn 10 right now, and Kimi's got to try and find a way, pardon me, much like Nico, to get as close as possible, so that way the slipstream does give him the ability to get past, because whilst the slipstream is relatively strong, it's not enough to offset the engine difference between the Aston Martin and the rotary of the Mazda. But still, whilst we are waiting for Captain Rob to potentially come into the pits, I think he's going to be coming in at the end of this lap, because he is on bingo fuel right now. In fact, that's looking very close to perhaps running out of fuel before he gets to the pits. We will let you know in due course. We have crossed the first half an hour, and we'll be giving you a recap of the grid very shortly as they currently stand out on circuit. As we can see Kimi there just following through right now, and I think getting ready to inherit that P4. But Captain Rob, let's see where he's going to come out as well. As they make their way through Casio Triangle, then Rob will be peeling off to the right-hand side to come into the pits, and we'll then see Kimi inherit that P4. Rob completes his racing soft stint. So with half an hour complete, right now your order is as follows. V1 Mehdi from France, representing the V1 team and the manufacturer of Nissan, leading by a gap of 3.4 seconds. He has cleared his racing hard stint after an early stint on the racing soft, enabling him to pull a huge gap on the field by just going at full aggression. And now Mehdi is on to his 3rd stint, where he's using a set of racing softs. He's still got the racing medium to use. We've then got TC Cobra 45, who is on his 2nd stint right now. The Mazda driver here, the lead of the TC drivers, on his 2nd racing soft stint. He has not cleared any of the mandatory tyres after he managed to get himself out in front of Mehdi, but then Mehdi found his way back past into turn number 1 on lap 14. We then got Nico JVT in P3 right now, and Nico falling behind his teammate earlier on and falling back a little bit. Nico going for a different strategy, effectively getting, I believe, what was the hard out the way, and now he's on the racing soft, and we suspect he'll do the racing medium in some order very soon. And then we have got GT Predators Kimi in P4, the Belgian driver right now. The lead of the GT Predator drivers have not made as many mistakes, it would seem, as Adrian, who made a mistake which saw the 2 drivers separate a little bit. But we can see that Kimi right now running around on the medium tyre. He has not cleared the hard tyre. It should be pointed out he has used soft so far and has now gone to the medium. And Adri in a similar situation on that racing medium tyre, the Frenchman in P5, 11.6 seconds down his teammate and 3 seconds clear of Zefix's Bandit. Bandit being the lead Zefix driver here, the Frenchman representing Nissan as well, making his way up to a spoon right now, having started on what was, I believe, the racing hard tyre for 2 laps, got that out of the way, and then went to what was, I believe, the racing soft tyre, and he's been using the soft tyre since, although he may still have the medium to clear. I can't remember 100%, but I think he's still got the medium to clear, has Bandit. Captain Rob, however, has come back out in P7 after a very long stint on the racing soft, a very well placed stint as well, and I believe Captain Rob has also cleared the racing hard earlier on in the race, so Rob will only have the medium to go later on. And Rob, having done such a long stint, has essentially inherited a load of positions by simply being out on track. And in fact, he's on the hard right now, clearing that hard, and then he'll be going to, if not the medium after this lap, to clear the medium, he'll be going back onto a set of racing softs, we suspect, in short order. So we're just going to see what's going to happen there as Captain Rob indeed comes into the pit. So he's going to come in, switched on to the medium and get that out of the way. So that means that Doffra now moves from P8 to P7. Doffra uses a similar strategy to his teammate Bandit. 10.7 seconds the gap between the pair of them, albeit Doffra being held up massively behind Rob for a period of time. And then we've got V3R's Mostro in P8 right now, having chosen to get both the racing hard and the racing medium out of the way, representing Toyota, of course, the Frenchman. And by getting those out of the way, he can now use the softs all the way to the end and will be on full attack from this point onwards. As we see Captain Rob coming out the pits, he's gone to the medium and will be getting the medium out of the way on one lap and then pitting again to go to the softs. So all that time he has had out on circuit, and my apologies, folks, he's only ever been on the soft for one stint up until now, we should point out. It means that Captain Rob will fall the way down towards the back, but he will then become very fighty. As we see that Padge C has retired. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Padge C was running in P12 at the time whilst we're going through the order. But that is our second retirement. The IGTSH driver is not able to continue tonight. That is unfortunate. We're now down to 11 drivers, and we'll come back to our retirements shortly. But Captain Rob right now making his way around in P9, clearing that medium tyre. We then got V3R's Goose in P10. Making his way through what is the run from turn 7 to turn 8 up into the first of the two Degners. The Frenchman, having used a similar strategy to his teammate Mostro, cleared the medium and the hard and now on softs to the very end in the Toyota. And then it is driver Breton bringing up the rear of our field in terms of the running order. Our 11th place driver from T2F in the Aston Martin. And again, much like his teammate, opted to clear the mandatory compounds earlier on and now on those racing softs. In terms of retirements, well, it is the teammate of Mehdi who was the first to fall, falling quite early on, V1 Miro. Unfortunately, much like at Brands Hatch, we seem to have had a similar issue come up, so it means that Mehdi is all alone representing V1, and the retirement we've just had there was IGTSH's Padge, who, Padge C, I should say, who was the only IGTSH driver able to run tonight, with his teammate Kende not able to take part at short notice due to personal reasons, and we hope they're both okay, of course. But that is our two retirements. Now, for those wondering, when we see that our drivers do have penalties for track limits, they are required to burn them. They will have to burn them within one lap of receiving them. Otherwise, they will be subject to further stewards' inquiries afterwards. And they're typically expected to burn them on the start-finish straight. So if a driver picks up the penalty on lap 18, they're expected to burn it by the end of lap number 19. And we did see that earlier on with Padge burning the penalty as he crossed the start-finish line there. Of course, they are expected to try and burn the penalties as safely as possible, typically on the straights, whether it be the back straight from Spoon to 130R or the start-finish straight. Those are the best two places to burn them, given that Suzuka can be very tight in GT3 class cars. But as we continue to look around the field here, we can see, looking around right now, that things have opened up a little bit, but we will get the crisscross of strategies in due order. And if you have been tuning in with us since the very start, well, we're glad to have you on board, of course. If you're only recently just tuned in, be sure to stay around because there's plenty more action to come in the remaining hour and 24 minutes. As I'm just going to take a quick breather and a sip of water. Alrighty, folks, we are back. And as we look on, with regards to our drivers right now, the big question, of course, will be what can we expect in the laps to come? Indeed, the stints to come. Well, I think right now, we're going to be in that game where all of our drivers are quite spaced out and are simply just trying to settle into their respective strategies now that everybody has shown their hand in terms of what tyres they've done and what tyres they haven't done yet. But the drivers I'd be worried about would be the two Zephyx drivers and also the T2F driver of Captain Rob, simply because they have cleared compounds and they're now on the soft end and they've shown they are very fast on the racing soft compound by comparison to the drivers around them. But of course, being fast on a compound is one thing, being able to overtake at Suzuka on that compound is another thing. And that's the thing that we're going through a number of drivers' heads in terms of that fact that they will need to try and get the most out of the respective compounds. But right now it is going to be a little bit quiet in terms of the action out on circuit, and in fact what that gives us a brilliant opportunity to do is we're going to jump on board very shortly with Mehdi so he can take you around a lap of the circuit, because I believe, yep, he's still got approximately half of his stint to go, so we will be able to give you a quick tour of the circuit whilst not too much is happening. So Mehdi right now coming down into the Casio Triangle Chicane to complete lap number 19 and then coming on to a lap 20. As he comes out the final corner, you're going to see that he's going to pull the car over towards the right hand side. I think he's going for a fastest lap here, and we'll see that it goes from a 1:57.4. He doesn't improve, so in fact not getting another fastest lap, but he makes his way all the way down towards turn number 1. So turns 1 and 2, known as turn 1 collectively, he'll be trail braking at that 50 board, rolling the car into the entry curve for turn 2 and then flexing the car onto the apex there before accelerating through. Now coming up into turns 3, 4, 5 and 6, the flying set of left to right, making his way through 3, then 4, down into 3rd gear right now. In fact, we'll get you the telemetry up on screen, and we can see in 4th gear, just planting it in 4th gear and balancing it on the throttle as he downshifts to 3rd gear to tighten the car to the apex of 5 before coming up the hill, through 6, and now going to 7, uphill now through 7, and it's the long run through sector 2 down towards turn 8 as he makes his way up into 5th gear for the first of the 2 Degners, braking at that 50 board, cutting across the apex curve there, 4th gear, and now braking hard down to 2nd gear for the 2nd Degner before flying over the curb and upshifting to 3rd to stabilise the rear end, and now coming up into turns 9 and 10. Flexing into the turn 10 hairpin, then he goes, and down into 1st gear here to get the maximum possible turn in rather than using 2nd gear, which takes away some of the turn in but will save some of the tyre life. Now making his way in the long run down towards Spoon here. As he goes through, you'll see that he's going to let the car gradually drift out to the left and then pull it back over to the right hand side. So he'll need to be on the right hand side for the racing line into the first part of Spoon. There he goes into part 1 and then running it wide into the second part of Spoon, widening the corner as much as possible and now extending outwards. And that's the long run down towards 130R. And as he charges down towards 130R here, you're going to be seeing that he's going to be going all the way up the gear range. We're expecting an upshift to 6th just before he gets to the lifted turning point. There it is, and then he's going to turn in onto the apex curve, downshift to 5th just to stabilise the car and bleed a little bit of the speed. Now braking hard down to the Casio Triangle Chicane. He'll flow over the apex curve at the first part, cut as much of the second curve, and then just simply stabilise the car out to complete the lap. And a nice lap there by Mehdi. Good one there for an example of how you can go around Suzuka at full pelt, and Mehdi on that lap setting a 1:58.2. So 8 tenths or so down on his best lap right now, but we'd expect that with the tyres being quite warm. Now looking further around the order, of course, because it's not just the story of Mehdi today, we can see that Cobra right now in terms of that tyre wear started to feel a bit of tyre wear, but very well balanced across all 4 tyres, and we like to see that, and drivers will typically want to see that because then the car has grip all over being reduced in terms of that tyre wear compared to if you had more wear on the front. So it's the front tyres that don't provide as much grip as the rear tyres. So Cobra trying to balance that tyre wear as much as possible, as we can see his teammate of Nico JVT doing a similar thing as well, albeit the front tyres a little bit less worn by comparison there, and Nico just a little bit gentler on his tyres right now by comparison with his teammate. And then we look further back and we can see that Zefix's Bandit right now in P4, really pushing hard on those racing softs and going as aggressive as possible in that GTR. It can be very harsh on its tyres, the GTR, and Bandit is keeping it under control right now and making the most out of the Japanese machine. As meanwhile behind him his teammate of Dofra in a similar situation in terms of tyre wear as they're making their way through the first sector. We've then got V3R's Mostro in P6 right now, and we can see that on those racing softs midway through their stint right now, and that Toyota being quite kind to its tyres, albeit not as kind as the Mazda, but it's very kind to its tyres in general, so long as you don't trigger any major understeer, and Mostro doing a very nice job of keeping that car turning as much as possible. As we see behind, there it is V3R's teammate of Goose, who's making his way up into turn 1 right now. And again, that tyre wear very well balanced across the car. We then got Kimi, who's just come into the pits, completing the stint. In fact, we can see that having completed that stint, where does his teammate come out? The GT Predator drivers have come into the pits just now, we should point out. And Adri getting rid of that hard tyre, going to a set of softs, and comes out right at the back of the field there. So just keeping track of that. Of course, we see Mehdi in the rear of the camera coming around to start lap number 22. But Kimi opting to go to another set of softs there, having cleared I think one of the mandatory compounds of the racing hard at one point here, but definitely the GT Predator team now spreading out and having to split the strategies because they find themselves separated on circuit. But Kimi coming back out in P8 and driver Breton right now, well, the fact he's on those racing softs, and you can see how hard those tyres have been worn, but still looking very comfortable, that Aston Martin, with the fact he's got that balanced tyre wear, and his teammate not too far behind Captain Rob on a fresh set of racing softs by comparison now, and going charging after his teammate. As behind them, we've now got Adri, who's gone to a fresh set of softs. What could he do from this far back? Now that he's effectively the last driver out of the circuit in terms of track position right now, but in the strategy stakes, it's all to play for, and he'll be hunting down Captain Rob as rapidly as possible. But I think from Adri's perspective right now, it's about seeing if he can time his stint right, so that way he doesn't end up getting too close to Captain Rob by the time Rob comes into the pits. And I think he'll close down Rob over the course of probably the next 6 to 7 laps. As we hold on a second, ladies and gentlemen, we have got a yellow flag. And who is this? Captain Rob with a disastrous off there and rejoining coming out of Spooner. What has happened to Captain Rob? Actually, we'll come back to that in a second, folks. I'm hearing that Captain Rob is in a battle with Adri right now, coming down into 130R, and we can see that Adri not able to capitalise on Rob losing all that momentum at Spoon, and driver Breton coming into the pits now for what is P9, the other T2F driver further up the field. But this is not what Adri will have wanted to have caught up to Captain Rob as soon as this, because of course Captain Rob making that mistake, and Adri would have hoped that he would have cleared Rob as a result of Rob's mistake, but instead Rob is there. Of course, Adri will be getting a tow down the start finish straight now. Well, I thought he was going to get a tow. In fact, Rob has just pulled away and completely broken the tow down into turn 1. That tow range being 0.75 seconds for reference, and that means now that Adri has got it all to do, and he's going to have to close up to Captain Rob, and he will do over the course of sector 1 in particular, as Cobra comes into the pits from P2. Now, we're just going to keep our eyes on that in the background right now, but we are going to focus on this battle for P9. As you can see that Adri having to take all different lines in order to try and just give himself a bit of extra turning momentum into the first sector there. It's a difficult one for Adri, and the fact that he's picked up the dirty air at the worst possible time, which is right at the start of a stint on a set of racing softs, and it's not what he would have wanted versus Captain Rob right now, because this is effectively costing him a huge amount of time. You saw him go deep there, did Adri, off of the apex of the second Degner as they make their way up into the turn 10 hairpin. And it should be pointed out that with Cobra having that pit stop, he's come back out in P3 as the two Zephyx drivers come into the pits in sequence from P4 and P5. And I believe that is going to release V3R's Mostro up into P4 for the time being. But as we look back right now to Captain Rob, we can see that Adri nowhere near close enough to catch up. And now let's finally take a look back at what happened to Captain Rob on the previous lap. So as he's making his way up towards Spoon then, does he just simply go a bit too deep over the first part of Spoon? In fact, he's coming with a lot of momentum there, and he's gone wide of Apex, and that is where he's gone wide. He's gone deep and then tried to run the car on the AstroTurf, and the car just simply said no. Didn't have the grip available there. But in terms of those pit stops, we can see that Bandit and Dofra have come back out behind Mostro. They're 8.7 seconds down, and they have switched to another set of racing softs as would be expected, and they're on a full tank of fuel once again, so they are going hunting after P4 and definitely chasing out the podium. The gap between them and Cobra, for reference, from Bandit to Cobra is effectively 8.2 plus what is a gap of 20.3, so they've got a 28 second gap, or a 29 second gap to catch up to, as Mehdi comes into the pits from the lead. And given the fact that Nico is 32 seconds down on a race leader, I think Mehdi is going to feel quite safe with this pit stop, unless of course he's going for a full refuel. Then Nico may just come out ahead of him, but Nico is coming to the end of his current stint as well. Will Nico peel into the pits this time round? We're about to find out if Nico does. I think it will be the case that Mehdi is clear. Mehdi is waiting to be refueled right now as Nico is coming across that timing line. Will Nico come out ahead of Mehdi, or will Mehdi have cleared the TC driver? Well, he's coming down towards the start-finish line. He's coming down towards turn 1, and it's going to be side-by-side. And Nico has just come ahead of Mehdi into turn 1. And again, this is not what Mehdi will have wanted to see. I'm sure he's going to clear Nico rather rapidly here, given the fact that if Nico isn't cleared by Mehdi over the course of this lap, then he's going to be pitted pitting within the next 2 laps. But again, this is just what TC are trying to do. I think they're just trying to get drivers to pop out in front of Medi, even if it's just for 1 lap through Sector 1 in particular, just to take the edge off of Medi's pace and to try and put some extra wear into Medi's tyres. Try and compromise his pace a little bit. It's working, but you could see that Nico under a lot of pressure from Medi right now as they're coming down to the first exit, and Medi just sitting there ominously behind Nico, getting ready to strike. And if he's going to go for it, would he go for it up into turn 10? Nico gets it a little bit squirrely on exit of the second exit. Medi on the outside here. Nico getting in the room, but defending as hard as possible, but he has to tuck it behind the next. Medi's just got so much more grip on those tyres, and Nico just can't outbrake him into the corner. But meanwhile, further back, we can see that we have got 2 drivers who are very close to one another, and that is Captain Rob at GT Predators, Adri here, and Captain Rob coming to the end of a stint, whereas Adri currently on a fresh set of tyres by comparison, and Rob is being hounded by Adri right now. The Mazda driver finding that he just doesn't have the straight line speed to battle with the Aston Martin. He's got to do it all through the corners, but of course that's the problem for the Mazda drivers. They just do not have the pace when they're so close to the back of the Aston Martins. Oh, and goodness me, and Adri! Oh no, that is a disaster for the GT Predator driver. Spinning out at turn 1 and rejoining. Let's take a look back at what happened there. So we're going to be riding on board with Adri here as he makes his way down the start finish straight. Now do keep in mind he's got a distant toe off to Captain Rob, which will affect the downforce of the car a little bit. Coming into turn 1, does he just come in too hot? Yep, he does indeed, and gets it just a little bit too light on the brakes there and runs onto the AstroTurf, but avoids putting it in the gravel. A good catch by Adri to avoid it in the gravel, and a nice little 360 pirouette to go with it. And now Nico comes into the pits from what was P2, and this will of course release Cobra back up into P2 for the time being. The gap between Cobra and Medi now 17.6 seconds, but do keep in mind that the TC drivers have yet to use the medium or the hard at any point, whereas Medi has already cleared the hard for 1 lap, which means Medi's only got 1 more mandatory compound to use, whereas the TC drivers have got both of the mandatory compounds to use, so they are down in terms of the strategy stakes. But we can see that Mostro right now, coming on to lap 25, Nico has got himself back out ahead of Mostro. So Mostro wasn't able to get himself in the way of the TC drivers this time around, and the gap between them effectively 3.8 seconds, albeit Mostro is coming to the end of his current stint, and I think it will be the case that Mostro will be dropping back down towards his teammate Goose, who's in P7 right now, albeit Goose will be pitted soon as we understand it. But meanwhile, with Adri making that mistake, Captain Rob being given a lot of space to operate with now out on the circuit, and we believe is due for a pit stop in the very short order. I think it's going to be the end of this lap as we see him making his way into the Casio Triangle chicane for the 24th time of asking. As he comes into the right-hander, he does come down into the pit instead of carrying on his merry way. So Captain Rob into the pit, and I believe this is going to put him out somewhere around the back of the field, most likely near his teammate, as we can see Adri right now having to make up for lost time after that mistake on lap 24. But looking further around the field, of course, we can see that Mostro being closed in at a very rapid rate of knots by Bandit. We're looking back from the Toyota Supra driver right now. Mostro, you're riding on board with the Frenchman, who has been running long in this races off stint right now and has cleared the mandatory tyres, so it's races off all the way to the end. And we believe that the Zephyx drivers have done the same as well, so they are technically in a different race, these two, albeit Mostro will not want to make it too easy for Bandit. If he can cost Bandit a little bit of time, then he will do so. But as they're making their way in the long run down towards 130R, everything is working out very nicely for the V3R driver right now. His teammate, meanwhile, is being hounded by Kimi a little bit. The GT Predator driver, of course, chasing after Goose. And again, with Goose on a very different strategy, and much like his teammate will be coming into the pits within the next 2 laps, we reckon, as Kimi on much fresher tyres right now will be looking to attack as we jump on board with Kimi. And you can see once again, whilst the Supra isn't as fast per se as that GTR in the acceleration initially, the Mazda just does not have the straight line speed, and Goose could afford to go back onto that racing line and not worry about defending into 130R as he pulls onto the racing line for the Casio Triangle chicane, and Kimi having to stay behind for the rest of this lap. Now, will Goose come into the pits? We're going to see that, and he does come into the pits in sequence with his teammate once again. So that releases Kimi, but Kimi will have lost a bit of time there, and he will be fully aware of that as Team V3R are now charging out to service their drivers. But really, that's been the story right now of the Mazda drivers, and in terms of that balance performance update, has it affected them? It would seem that they just do not feel as comfortable on their tyres, those racing softs taking them as deep into the race as they previously would. Pardon me, so I think that 12 kilograms is affecting them a little bit, albeit the TC guys are doing a very good job of not letting it show. As we can see that Cobra and Nico just running around separately on circuit right now in a little order of their own, as Bandit in P4 is chasing after Nico and trying to find a way of snatching a podium, no doubt. And Doffer, 11.6 seconds down the road from his teammate in P5, will be looking to try and support him as much as possible and get his own podium potentially, should things work out in that way. But as for where our drivers have come out, well, Kimi's now back up into P6, what with Mostro pitting, and also Goose pitting, of course. Mostro in P7, he's gone to a set of racing softs, and remember, he can choose to go on the softs to the end, given the fact he's already cleared the racing medium and the racing hard. And as they continue to make their way around right now, Mostro will feel comfortable in the fact knowing that he does not have to make any more mandatory stops, and he can just enjoy this compound as much as he wants. Adri in P8, he's cleared Goose, of course. What with the fact that Goose making that pit stop, but what with the fact Adrian made that mistake, Goose has come out behind him and is not far down the road behind him. So I think Adrian is now up against it a bit, as we see that Adrian about a third of the way into his current stint on those racing softs, where Goose on those much fresher tyres is starting to close down the GT Predator driver, and doing so in a rapid order right now. As we can see, he's taking chunks out of him corner by corner, sector by sector. Now the question, of course, from Adrian's perspective is, what do you do here in order to try and recover that mistake? What do you do to try and get the time back? As you can see further in the rear of your camera shot there, we do have T2S driver Breton trying to catch up to this battle that started to begin for P8. When Adrian's position, I think you do have to go a little bit defensive in these straight line speed zones, particularly in the run down towards 130R, just given the fact you don't have the speed to be able to actually hold off the Supra behind you, or indeed the Aston Martins behind you. You've got to try and maximise your pace through the quarters. So Adrian, I think, will need to get the hurry on in order to try and hold on to this position, because if he can hold on to P8 now, he will benefit himself by essentially taking away some of the pace that Goose and driver Breton will have against him. But of course, in doing so, then he relegates himself out of the potential fight for a top 5 place, which he won't want to do, but perhaps it's going to be the better of the two worst case scenarios here. But we'll wait and see what he does decide to do as he goes deeper and deeper in here. I mean, you've got to feel for AG right now, because this is not a comfortable position to be in, given the fact he's essentially on the back foot in terms of strategy, and will have to figure out how he can essentially recover that strategy as Goose gets ever closer right now. And you can see that Goose feels so much more comfortable on those fresh tyres, albeit he is now in that dirty air of AG's car, and he's going to be feeling that through these corners and falling out of the dirty air zone briefly, as AG does not get the power down too well out of turn 7, and now the Supra is going to close up very rapidly versus Adri as they make their way into the first of the two Degners here, now into the second one, and you can just see how strong Goose is on those brakes as Adri makes a mistake there at Degner 2 and immediately goes defensive. Now he's lost a lot of pace by comparison with the V3R driver. They come down into the turn 10 hairpin, and Goose has got it done. A nice move by Goose there as they continue around the circuit on lap 27, and Goose up into P8. I think Adrian's mistake there made that a lot easier than what was expected to be for the Frenchman as they make their way up towards Spoon right now. And the next driver who will have Adrian in his sights, of course, will be T2F's driver Breton in that Aston Martin. 2.5 seconds is the gap between the two of them right now, and he'll be trying to close it down as quickly as humanly possible as they make their way through Spoon. Now looking around the order once again, we can see that Captain Rob right now in P11 on his set of races. So was up in P3 at one point, was Captain Rob, with all the strategies playing out, and made himself a very inconvenient roadblock for the Zephyx drivers in particular. And now Rob essentially looking into that position of trying to get himself back into the race as much as possible here, down at the back of the field right now, but of course there's plenty more laps remaining. And we can see that Mehdi making his way through at the Casio Triangle Chicane. Once again, 23.7 seconds is the gap between himself and Cobra 45 right now. But as we look back to that battle for what was P8, but now it's more of a battle for P9, we can see that driver Breton is closing up gradually to AG, but AG feeling much stronger, and indeed the Mazda being much stronger through the sector 1, just giving AG the opportunity to try and pull a little bit away from Breton, albeit we can see that AG starting to fall off the cliff in terms of tyre life here, and not feeling as comfortable through the flying apexes here by comparison with how he would be on a fresh set of tyres, and that means that Goose is able to gradually pull away into the distance, and driver Breton is able to maintain that gap, if not start to close it down as soon as he comes out of sector 1 and into sector 2. But of course it's a trade-off here, and I think Breton will be full aware of the fact that it's going to be one thing to catch up to the Mazda driver, it's going to be another thing to overtake him, as we ride on board right now with Breton and see his line up through turn number 10. And you can see just how sensitive he's got to be with that throttle pedal getting on the power, although by comparison, Adri there, the lack of torque from that Mazda costing it the best part of half a second out of the turn 10 hairpin there versus the Aston Martin and driver Breton. And it just goes to show you the differential in the two cars. The V12 engine of the Aston Martin versus the rotary of Adri's car here. It's not working out in terms of the over acceleration zones for the Mazda drivers, or particularly in the case of GT Predators Adri, but we'll wait and see what Breton is able to do as he is gradually closing that gap down. Making his way into 130 once again then, and we can see that the Frenchman now 1.4 seconds is the gap, but of course that gap will open up a little bit through the cornering sector that's about to come up as they start lap 29, but then it should start to close up again as the lap goes on. But Breton into the pit, so this is the end of a current stint for Breton, and I think Adrian will be very relieved at the fact he does not have the T2F driver getting close enough to contest him, and I think AG just will want to settle onto his race now, given the fact he's halfway through his current stint. And that could have been disastrous for Adri if Breton had been able to go a little bit longer. I think that would have put a lot of pressure on him and really caused him problems. But meanwhile, as we continue to look on, the big question, of course, will be what can the T2F drivers do to make the way? Well, I say what can they do as Captain Rob goes wide out of turn 1. It looks as though it was just a little mistake there. Let's take a look. So making his way down in towards turn 1 then on lap 29. We're going to see he misses the apex curve a little bit, and Rob just being caught out with too much speed into turn 2 there and running wide on entry. We've seen that mistake a number of times, but Rob doing a very good job of recognising it before it could have proved catastrophic there. But T2F just having a difficult race tonight, and it's not working out for them as they continue around right now, and we're coming to the end of the first hour of what has been a very strategic race with some very tight-knit battles throughout, but it has opened up once again as we're moving into the second half of the race. And after a brief breather, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to give you a summary of the first hour and what can be expected to occur for the rest of it. So as we come back and the first hour is now complete, we'll just take you through the order. And still up front and leading by the margin of 27.5 seconds is V1's Medi59. The Frenchman in the Nissan GTR having led this race from pole, having opted to start on the racing softs, then gone for a one-lap stint on the racing hards as he gets a little sideways there at Casio Triangle, and now running on the softs once again, but he does have the medium still to do. But he's got a nice big window over his main rivals. His main rivals being Team TC, being led right now by Cobra 45, making his way through 130R on lap 30, whereas Medi's on lap 31 right now. And we can see Cobra 45 28 seconds down now on the race leader in the Mazda RX Vision, having opted to do only racing soft stints so far, and I believe has not used the medium or the hard yet. His teammate, meanwhile, Nico JBT, having gone for the one-lap magic on the hard after his second racing soft stint. The TC team splitting their strategies, and Nico JBT 17.8 seconds down on Cobra right now. However, the big question over the top of all this is what can Team Zephyx do in order to disrupt the plans of Team TC? We have Zephyx Bandit, who is only 3.1 seconds down on Nico JVT, coming on to lap 31 right now is Bandit. The Frenchman in the Nissan GTR having opted to use the racing medium early on, and I believe maybe even the racing hard, but we're not sure whether there's one compound remaining out of the two of them. But Bandit on a set of racing softs right now and chasing after the podium positions very rapidly. His teammate Dofra in P5 right now, also in the Nissan GTR, not having as much success, albeit on a very similar strategy to Bandit. The two have been in sequence and 11.8 seconds down on his teammate. GT Predators Kimi has just come into the pits from P6, so instead of V3R's Mostro will be covered next, who has come up back into P6. Mostro having opted to get the racing medium and the racing hard out the way very early on in the race, right at the start, and now running racing softs to the end. The Toyota Supra driver doing a solid job to find himself essentially the best of the rest outside of the top 5 at this point, or at least we suspect he is the lead driver in the battle for P6. And instead, as we see that Goose is now coming down towards the timing lines, will Goose come out ahead of Kimi as Kimi makes his way out of the pits very shortly? Well, I believe it's going to be Goose who inherits P7 for the time being, with Kimi coming out of the pits now. And we can see that Adri is in the pits, and we've got our race leader of Medi coming through to lap Kimi right now, and Kimi will need to get out of the way in very short order. But we'll come back to Kimi in terms of his overall race performance very shortly, as we just see that Goose making his way through Sector 1 right now on a very similar strategy to Mostro, albeit some mistakes early on has cost him the ability to stay close to his teammate. But 24 seconds is the gap between Mostro and Goose, and 6 seconds down the road from Goose right now, after having made that pit stop, is GT Predators Kimi. And we believe that Kimi is in that fight against Mostro for P6. The Mazda driver having had a difficult start to the race, albeit he's now found himself more into the race in terms of comfort on those racing soft tyres. But it should be pointed out in the case of Kimi, he has got the racing medium and I believe the racing hard out the way, so as a result it means that Kimi is running on racing softs all the way to the end. And then it is 28.8 seconds down to driver Breton, who right now is the lead Aston Martin driver, one of only 2 Aston Martin drivers remaining, running around on the soft tyre, having cleared both the medium and the hard out the way. And I believe it's Captain Rob, his teammate behind, who coming to the end of the stint right now has got at least the racing hard out of the way. We're not sure about the status of that racing medium, but he's about to be lapped by TC Cobra. The gap between him and his teammate 1.2 seconds, and GT Predators Adri only 4.8 seconds down the road, having had that disastrous off at turn 2 only a few laps ago, costing him time and places. Adri, the last of our runners right now, having just pitted for a new set of racing softs and a full tank of fuel. We've also had 2 retirements today. We've had the retirement of what was firstly V1's Miro, the other Nissan GTR driver from the V1 Esports Racing team, retiring early on in the race with technical issues with the car. And we've also had the retirement of IGTSH's Padge C, who was in the Aston Martin quite a way into the race, about half an hour or so into the race. The Hungarian driver, the only member of IGTSH able to race tonight. Due to personal circumstances, we weren't able to see IGTSH's Kendi out of the circuit, but Padge having to retire the car due to technical issues after approximately half an hour. So that's the story so far, and we are expecting things to kick off in that battle for P6 later on. And that's where most of the expected action will be later in the race, probably within the last half an hour, as we see Captain Roll coming into the pits for a scheduled stop. But we see right now Medi just running away with this, as has been the case throughout the majority of the race so far. But then again, we have seen that Medi is prone to potential mistakes when pushing too hard, particularly in hunting down that fastest lap. He's now dropped the bar to 1:57.395, as we see that Bandit now coming into the pits from what was P4. Now this is going to be critical for Bandit, given the fact that we can see that Nico is coming towards the end of a stint, albeit Nico's got approximately 5 to 6 more laps to go. Bandit pitting now is on a different strategy effectively, as we... Hold on a second, what has happened to Dofra here? Oh, Dofra's only recently pitted. I was going to say, ladies and gentlemen, my sincere apologies, I thought Dofra had made a mistake. So Dofra had to pit on the previous lap, whereas Bandit is now pitting. That's why Mostro is up into P5. Bandit in the pits right now, and Mostro coming out of the Casio Triangle chicane to complete his lap. I believe that Bandit is going to be coming back out in P4. But what I was going to say, as Bandit goes away for another stint on the race's soft tyre, is that given that Nico right now, as we can see from the telemetry, only has approximately 28% of his fuel tank to go, or 28 litres, it means that Nico will probably be coming into the pits within the next 6 laps. Now, whilst Bandit is offset in terms of strategy, do remember that Nico still has one mandatory compound to fit, and I believe that Bandit may have something similar, but Bandit is not too far down the road right now, and the Nissan GTR seems to be the stronger car here by comparison between the Mazda RX Vision and the GTR. So Bandit could be on for securing that podium here as we go deeper and deeper. The gap now is 33.8 seconds, but watch that gap come down as Bandit gets those tyres switched on and goes full attack mode. He's got clear track as well. He doesn't have to worry about any back markers. He doesn't have to worry about giving way to anyone behind. He can just go on the hunt and absolutely hound it round the circuit. Now, of course, from Bandit's perspective, you do have to keep in mind that the harder you push around Suzuka, particularly what are the conditions we've got here with the low light and also the fact we're an hour in, the tiredness is going to be creeping into her legs. One little mistake can be very costly as Cobra 45 comes into the pits, and we can see that Nico JBT will continue around the circuit. We don't believe he's going to come in to react to a Bandit, and Cobra had more than enough of a gap over Bandit not to have to react to him either. But then again, do remember that Cobra has yet to use one of the two mandatory compounds. To explain, ladies and gentlemen, our drivers are expected to use the Racing Soft, the Racing Medium and the Racing Hard tyre during this race. We refer to the Racing Soft as the optional compound because everybody will just use it. It's the fastest compound and it's the grippiest compound, albeit it's got the least tyre life, but the lap time differential is such you want to be on that Racing Soft as much as possible. We refer to the Medium and the Hard as the mandatory compound because you're forced to use it even though you wouldn't want to use it here if you had the ability to use whatever tyre you could choose. But we have seen in a good number of cases drivers opting to only do 1 to 2 laps on the tyre. Only a couple of drivers, particularly further back, have gone for longer stints, such as the V3R drivers of Mostro and Goose have gone for longer stints on both the medium and the hard and have made it work, as we did see them do something similar back at Interlagos in the quarterfinals in Pool C, and they're working that a treat so far. So that's how it's all going to come together, and really for Cobra 45 there is that pressure over his head right now, and the fact that he has got at least one additional stop to make compared to the Zephyx drivers and the V3R drivers, as Medi comes into the pits from the race lead, a scheduled stop, and he is 52.5 seconds clear of Nico right now, so this is not going to be a compromising stop whatsoever unless he makes a mistake or the pit crew gets something horrifically wrong, which we doubt is going to happen. They will have rehearsed this time and time again. So that is the big question with regards to the hunt for the podium right now. Is Bandit is going to fit into that podium fight significantly? And I'm wondering whether it's going to be that the TC drivers are aware of this. I'm sure they are, but are they aware of the fact that Bandit right now is the biggest threat to the podium positions? Because it typically has been the TC drivers have done a very good job of finishing on that podium in formation, normally second and third in the quarterfinals, and they'll be looking to carry on that form here. But I'm wondering whether we're going to see some disruptions that as Bandit just goes the full width of the circuit there, coming into the second part of Spoon. And obviously place your bets right now. Feel free to let me know in the Twitch chat what you suspect may happen. As Bandit is making his way down towards a turn, or sorry, not turn, 130R once again, coming into the corner and absolutely attacking it. And his previous lap, to give you an idea, folks, was a 155.6, although that was a lap out the pits. That's why that time is faster than Medi's, but not registered as faster lap. But it's still a very solid out lap. And now we're going to see Bandit put in his first flying lap on these fresh set of tyres, and it is going to be a 158.0. So a little bit down on Medi. Medi having a bit more pace than this and JTR, but Bandit definitely putting in some absolute bangers of laps right now, trying to get the most out of the car, as we can see that Cobra is only 3.2 seconds down on his teammate, and we see further up meanwhile that I believe Medi has just cleared T2F's driver Breton in terms of lapping the driver. Medi of course dictating that lead lap. But I think in the case of Nico and Cobra, when the two get close enough to one another, Nico still having approximately 2 laps to go after this one. I do not think there's going to be any fighting between the two of them. I think immediately Nico is going to pull offline in order to let Cobra through it and then tuck him behind to let Cobra pull him along a little bit, because they will be aware of the fact that right now they are in a race versus Bandit, and Bandit could come into that and cause a lot of problems. Mostro, meanwhile, in terms of that hunt for the podium, well, he is on a long Racing Soft stint right now. He's still got approximately a quarter of it to go. we reckon. And Mostro very comfortable on those warm racing soft tyres in that Supra. The Supra being very good once it's up to speed, and it works very well on warm tyres, as we've seen in the hands of Mostro, the lead V3R driver right now, doing everything he needs to really cause problems for the drivers around him and gain time and places as he goes. And it's the same story with Goose, really, who in P7 haven't had the best of races so far by comparison with his teammate. The little mistakes crept in here and there, but Goose definitely starting to settle into this race as much as possible as Cobra comes into the pits. So Cobra going for a short stint there. And I'm wondering actually with regards to Cobra whether that was a short stint to try and get fastest lap, and it hasn't worked out. Because we can see, yep, it was a short stint to go for fastest lap, and that surely is going to release Bandit up the order now. So the TC drivers here see the switch here, and Bandit is going to be promoted into P3, and this could really turn the tables right now. Because this is a surprise, but we have seen this a couple of times from drivers where they've gone for very short stints midway through the race or towards the end of the race to try and get that fastest lap, but Cobra not able to get it and take it off of Medi, and now that means that Bandit up into P3. Well, what can he do here as Cobra has come out of the pits and I believe has gone to a new set of racing softs and a full tank of fuel here, so Cobra is effectively one stint down now on Bandit. What with that, so this is a complete reversal of fortunes here, and this is not good news for Team TC, because they now have one driver who has been covered by Bandit, and Nico could be at risk of being covered as well by Bandit at this point. Now in terms of the stints, we can see that Nico is due to come in at the end of this lap, and meanwhile with Bandit he's still got the best part of 2/3 of a stint to go, so Bandit is the man making moves right now. And if I had to put my money on this, I actually think Bandit could be on course for a P2. I think he could snatch second place away and really shock Team TC, because he is coming through very rapidly. And meanwhile, V3R's Mostro, will remember Mostro has cleared both of the mandatory compounds, so he can go on the softs all the way to the end. And whilst Mostro is effectively out of sequence with Cobra and Nico, he will have those softs. Cobra still has to do the stints on the hard and the medium. Nico still has to do, I believe it's the medium stint. So they have effectively got one extra pit stop they've got to do by comparison with Mostro, who doesn't have to do any additional pit stops. So Mostro right now could actually also find himself jumping onto that podium. I think TC are very vulnerable here of losing their podium finishing positions and instead finishing in that top 5 as Nico is into the pits as on schedule. And now Bandit, where is he going to come out? I think Bandit has done enough to jump ahead of Nico for the time being, albeit this will be a jump ahead on track, but not in terms of the strategy sequence. Nico is still the lead driver in that strategy sequence compared to Zefix's Bandit, but this is really all kicking off right now. I know it's not battling out on circuit, folks, but the strategies are really coming together, and this is going to make for some frightful racing towards the end for these guys. As we see, with 46 minutes to go, Bandit right now has cleared Nico, as we called it out, as Nico is putting the fuel in the car right now, and we can see that he's got the fuel in the car. Now, will he do the place swap with his teammate? Well, we can see that Cobra has come through and is ahead of Nico. Now, surely the TC drivers are going to have to come up with some sort of form whereby one of them is going to be the pace driver and the other one is going to be the one who follows the pace car. And I think Cobra is going to go full attack, and Nico is going to try and follow him as much as possible in order to make up for lost time here, because Bandit is 9 seconds up the road and they'll want to reel him in. Further back, of course, we see that Mostro is only 7.7 seconds back on Nico right now, and we can see that Dofra closed it up to Mostro. 4.8 seconds is the gap, but Mostro is on very heavily worn tyres by comparison with Dofra, who is on a very fresh pair of tyres. And then it's Goose, who is being chased down by GT Predator's Kimi right now, and Goose is coming to the end of his stint, doing a very long stint on those softs, and I believe if he's not pitting at the end of this lap, then it will be the end of lap 38 where Goose pits. And we're going to stay with the V3R driver and look back right now. You're riding on board with V3R's Goose, and we can see that in that Supra, those tyres are so heavily worn right now. He's definitely feeling that wear, making his way up towards turn 7. Into that left-hander he goes then, and we can see that Kimi being able to take that much tighter and more aggressive line up the hill. But it's the speed of that Toyota when they get onto a straight where you can just see that the Mazda cannot compete. And I think the Mazda here really just having difficulty at Suzuka. It's only really Sector 1 where it's able to catch up. And now Kimi, well, he's 0.9 seconds behind. He's going to gain most likely into the hairpin here because of the fact Goose has got such heavily worn tyres. And you can see Kimi's able to literally shred that gap down. But then as soon as they get into an acceleration zone, it's bye-bye Mazda, and that Supra just charges away once again. And it really has been the story of the Mazda drivers here in the midfield. They just haven't been able to find an answer to the pace of the cars around them on those straights, as we see even further back right now. I believe we have got a couple of drivers who are coming quite close to blows, and it is Cobra and Nico who are closing up to one another, and I think this is going to be an attempt to get these two drivers into a sequence, as we see that Mostro coming into the pits from what was P5, releasing Dofra up into P5 as a result, and Mostro on that scheduled stop, and Cobra and Nico close together right now. I'm not sure what's going on here, folks, whether they're trying to essentially give one another tow, or whether they're trying to enable Nico to get ahead of Cobra. We'll wait and see what's going to happen, but this is the worst possible place for them to be running close together, because Nico's going to get some extra tyre wear as a result of running in that dirty air, as we see that both Mostro and Goose are into the pits. And where will Mostro come out? Will he come out behind Kimi? Now that could be critical for Mostro's progress in the rest of this race if he comes out too close behind Kimi, because Kimi has still got the best part of a third of his current stint. Well, Mostro's coming out the pits now, and the gap between the two of them is the window of approximately 6.5 seconds. So I think Mostro actually has got away with this one quite nicely. He's given himself enough gap to Kimi not to be compromised by Kimi, who'll be coming to the end of his stint right now. As we see Goose, meanwhile, in the pits right now, as Adri comes out of the final corner to complete lap 37. And I think Goose will have done enough to pop out ahead of Adri. We're going to see, yep, there he is. We can see that Goose has popped out ahead of Adri, who's coming down across our timing line, and that start-finish straight right now. And Adri is still in P9, all said and done. But meanwhile, with regards to Cobra and Nico, well, it may be the case actually that these two drivers are trying to fuel save off of one another, and Nico's trying to fuel save off of Cobra here, and they're doing this to give Nico the best possible opportunity to go hunting after Bandit, and also perhaps even if he gets into the battle, Dofra. Alternatively, it could be the case that Mostro gets into this fight for the podium later on. It is all closing up right now. And I think we've still got a long story to tell with regards to these guys, as we see Bandit making his way out of Casio Triangle. It's only 4.3 seconds up the road is Bandit by comparison with the two Mazda drivers. You can see them there in the rear of your picture, whereas Bandit's in the foreground. And with this change in strategies, Bandit has still got approximately a third of his current stint to go. And what this means for Bandit effectively is he has got to go push all the way. And if he does, and he does it well, he could really find himself inheriting a good set of positions here based on strategy. But he's working it hard, is Bandit, and you know he is working it as hard as possible. He's like this in FIA races, really putting it to the grindstone, and now he's doing it once again here in the Binome Elite Endurance Cup, and doing everything he can to try and come home in that P2 right now. P1 is definitely secured unless there's a major issue from Mehdi. That gap of a minute, way too much for anybody to overcome, unless Mehdi has to retire the car or just completely bins it somewhere. But Cobra and Nico running in formation right now, and definitely trying to work together to try and offset the advantage that Bandit has got. And I think they really are trying to get as much fuel saving in for Nico here, because if Nico's able to do fuel saving right now as we look forward from Nico's car, and you can see how close he's running to Cobra, and he's got no complaints about running in the dirty air of Cobra's car here. I think he's very used to running in that air. By doing so, effectively, he'd just save enough fuel to get him a little bit deeper into the race, and perhaps get himself out in front of Bandit, or put himself in a position where he can become a problem to Bandit. But I think the TC team having to react to everything that's going on around them, and they're doing a good job at reacting to it, as Dofra right now 11.8 seconds down on those guys, and coming towards the end of his current stint. So Dofra definitely not in the hunt strategy wise by comparison with the man in P7 right now, Mostro, who we believe is essentially on the potential pounce for a podium position as well, albeit he's down in P7 right now, and there's a sizable gap between himself and our drivers up towards the front of the field. But Mostro, remember, does not have to run the racing medium or the racing hard. He's already done it. Kimi's 3.7 seconds up the road from him, and if Mostro's timed it right, then Kimi will be coming into the pits within the next 2 to 3 laps. We can see that he is coming to the end of the stint based on the telemetry data there, and what that will mean for Kimi is that he'll be dropping back down to approximately P8, depending on where Goose is. Yeah, he'll definitely, well no, he won't be dropping back to P8, or it might be, it'll be in the balance, because Goose is approximately 30 seconds off of Kimi right now, the second of the V3R drivers, and Adri will be looking to do everything he can for GT Predator to try and catch up to Goose and get in the way of Goose and cause him problems to cost him time, because GT Predator right now are looking very vulnerable to V3R jumping them over strategy. And we can see further out, unfortunately, it's not materialising for T2F. Driver Breton in P10 and Captain Rob in P11. It was looking so good for Captain Rob earlier on when he was up in P3 and essentially becoming that rolling roadblock, but now all the way down in P11, 25 seconds off his teammate. But continuing all the same, and it's great to see. You love to see our drivers carrying on no matter what the cause or purpose, just bringing it home to the end. That's the sportsmanship spirit, and Captain Rob embodying that alongside his teammate. But meanwhile, again, coming back to what's happening up front, we can see that Bandit is still holding that gap at 4.3 seconds compared to the TC drivers here of Cobra and Nico. And Nico just falling out of the slipstream zone of Cobra here. And I think it's the case that Nico was trying to stay in there long enough to save a bit of fuel, but now he's fallen out of it because he's just starting to feel that dirty air creep in and attack his tyres a little bit. And now it is a question of what can they do with 39 minutes remaining to make sure that Bandit does not get away with this one. Smokey in the Bandit here, well, he's definitely going to be it'll be a robbery to be able to take that P2 off of Cobra and Nico, and it will surprise a lot of people down in the paddock, I think. But as they continue round, let's take a look back at our strategies then and see who's due for a pit stop in that very short period of time. Well, we believe that our race leader right now of Medi is midway through his current stint, so he's not due for a pit stop anytime soon. He's still got the racing medium to do, however. Bandit will be due for a pit stop very soon. He's only got about 3 laps left on that set of tyres and that fuel tank. And then we've got Cobra and also Nico. And you could see how much fuel saving Nico's done behind Cobra. He saved the best part of, I would approximate to be 8 litres worth of fuel behind his teammates. So that's why they were doing it, as Dofra comes into the pits from P5 and has picked up a penalty. And I think he may have hit the... No, he hasn't hit the wall. He's just simply cut the chicane there. And that's how he's got the 3 seconds worth of penalty, which he will have to burn over the course of the remainder of the race, ideally within the next lap, as expected as part of the rule set, I believe. But we can see that Kimi right now in P6 and really being pressured by Mostro here, and Kimi I think coming into the pit, so this has worked out perfectly for Mostro, who has got himself clear air after a little bit of tow off of Mostro's car. Now off of Kimi's car, and now Mostro coming across the line here. He's going to jump up into P5, so he has cleared Dofra, who is going to be coming out the pits right now, and the gap between the pair of them is going to be approximately 3 seconds as Dofra comes down into turn 2. But remember, Dofra has got to burn that penalty, so that gap is going to open up to the best part of 5 seconds, I would say. And Mostro right now, you have to think of it, because he's got a lot of this stint to go. Mostro is really looking strong here, and I think if not just on for a top 5, could be on for that podium, because Cobra has definitely got 2 pit stops worth of time to spend still, and that will cost him the best part of 40 seconds to do the medium and the hard if he's going for one lap magic. Alternatively, if he's going to run those stints long, then Mostro will be able to catch up by just running those racing softs, which we believe in terms of tyre comparison, the racing soft in its prime is approximately, what is about 1 to 1.2 seconds faster than the medium, and it's approximately 2 to 2.5 seconds faster than the hard. That is the delta between the tyres here, and that is going to be critical. As we see in the pits right now is Adri from GT Predator just taking his schedule stop, much like Kimi, and he'll be coming back out in P10 as driver Breton has moved up into P9. But we leave Breton, he's on a different strategy, and we drop him back to P10 come the end of his current stint, all being normal, no mistakes or anything from anyone or no major incidents. But that's how it's all changing up right now, as we do see that effectively the way it's playing out is that Mostro is really starting to come into world of his own, and Dofra will be chasing after him, but at the same time the Zephyx driver will know that to catch Mostro now he's got to pull something special out the bag, because Mostro really is in a realm of his own on that strategy, and in the strongest place strategy wise to make sure that he comes home in the top 5 or in that P5 position, if not higher. Now the gap to him and Nico is 40.4 seconds, so Mostro is within striking distance of the TC drivers. As we look further up, and we can see that Cobra has now pulled a gap of 1.4 seconds over his teammate after the fuel saving the strategy between the two of them occurred, and Bandit is now gradually being reeled in a little bit. Bandit's tyres starting to hit the end of life here. We can see he's coming on to his final lap. He is on his final lap right now, and I think Bandit is getting ready to pit, but that gap of 3.8 seconds is nothing to be sneezed at, and it's a good gap that Bandit's got himself into here, because based on our current timings, what it will effectively mean is he will come out in clear air behind Nico. He'll be ahead of Mostro, so Bandit will be safe from Mostro. Well, we believe that will be the case, because there's approximately a 46-second gap between Bandit and Mostro right now. So Bandit will then come back out, and the pressure will be on Team TC to find a way to outsmart Bandit on the remaining time with regards to the strategy. So not too much overtaking right now or battling we're seeing out on circuit, but big strategic battles happening up and down the field, particularly in terms of who's going to be on that podium and who is going to be in that top 5. But Bandit coming into Casio Triangle, and we suspect here comes the pit stop. He's going to be braking off to the right hand side very shortly. Just your standard stop here, as we see that Cobra and Nico both dropping back a little bit, in fact, and into the pits does come Bandit on schedule. And Cobra right now in P2, promoted back up to P2, and having a difficult one. I think Cobra finds himself between a rock and a hard place, knowing that he is at some point going to have to go onto that hard and also the medium. And based on what we've previously seen, I think we are going to see that Cobra will try and run the medium long to the end. He'll be on the medium right at the end of the race, or the hard alternatively. But of course, in doing so, he's got to be wary of the fact that it's going to be a very vulnerable game to play, because then he'll be losing approximately a second a lap compared to anybody on equal pace who's running the racing soft. Now, Mostro coming through Casio Triangle right now. He's come through, and Bandit is already out of the pits, and we can see that Dofra on that penalty right now, burning it away, and Mostro in P5. Dofra 4 seconds down the road, closing gradually to Mostro after burning his penalty, but not at the rate he would like. As we see, he continues to burn that penalty off, in fact burning the rest of the penalty off right there. And he's also going to be letting Medi through, or is he? No, he returns to the racing line, and Medi tries to find his way past the Zephyx driver here. V1 will be screaming for blue flags to be out, and Dofra does get out of the way in due course. Nicely done there, of course. And we can see that with Dofra releasing Medi now, that opens the gap between himself and Mostro to 7 seconds. He let Medi through at probably one of the worst possible places for his own race pace, and now Mostro will have a nice comfort barrier. But of course, Mostro will want to continue to push, because he'll know that he can potentially hunt down a podium spot here. He's only 12.2 seconds down on Bandit, who's just pitted, and Mostro is halfway through his current stint, and that means he is within arm's reach of Nico and Cobra when they come into the pits. But as things continue right now, it should be noted that Bandit is the best part of 27.5 seconds down on Nico and Cobra. And in terms of the two TC drivers, they're about halfway through their current stints, so Mostro will be the next driver to pit out of our top 5, or at least we'd expect that, although Medi may have a word about that, because I think he is coming up towards the end of his current stint as well. But that's that's how it is right now, with 32 minutes to go. And really, we suspect that with regards to the battles further down the order, Dofra right now at 22.5 seconds clear of Goose, and Goose, whilst on a comfortable stint right now, I do not think is in the hunt for that P6 versus Dofra. I think Dofra's done enough to clear V3R's Goose, but Goose only 4.5 seconds ahead of Kimi. And what can Kimi do to get himself back in the hunt for that P7? But as we're looking around the circuit right now, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm just checking with the stewards, and nothing's being reported right now, always A-OK. Kimi having a difficult race, but continuing on nonetheless. He's got a comfortable gap to driver Breton of 31.8 seconds. So Kimi will feel safe in this P8, but he'll not be what he'll wanted, and he would have wanted to have been right up towards that top 5. I think he's going to have to try and find a way to get back into the fight versus Goose, who's only 4.6 seconds up the road. He'll be able to see Goose under most corners. In fact, as we ride on board with Kimi here, you'll be able to see as he comes out of the Casio Triangle to complete lap 43. He'll be able to see Goose just at the periphery of his vision up ahead. It's a faint speck, but at the same time, the Mazda just not being that strong down the straights here. And it's not working out for Kimi right now. We're going to take a brief breather, and then we're going to give you a quick summary as we head into the final quarter. And we just come back here, folks, and we can see that with half an hour to go, driver Breton just coming into the pits for T2F from P9. So that's going to release GT Predator's AG back up into P9 at this point in time. We're just going to call our drivers off the order then to give you a summary of their races so far and what to expect in the remaining half an hour. So, our leader right now is V1's Medi59 with a lead of 1 minute and 14 seconds on the lead lap of lap 45. Medi leading from start to this point in the race, having done the hard tyre quite early on, but he's yet to take the race in medium, so he does have that mandatory tyre requirement still to do. However, in second place, 1 minute and 14 seconds down, is TC's Cobra 45, the lead of the TC drivers in the Mazda RX Vision. Having only run on the racing soft so far, he does have both of the mandatory compounds to run. And we have Nico, his teammate, just behind Nico JBT, 1.1 seconds behind. The two drivers working hard as much as possible to try and fuel save off of one another. And Nico has already taken the hard tyre, but still needs to take the medium, much like Medi. P4 right now, however, 23.5 seconds down the road, is held by Zefix's Bandit. Now, Bandit is the driver who we're keeping our eyes on because we reckon that he could be trying to surprise everybody with a second place here. He has been looking very fast. He has cleared at least one of the mandatory tyre requirements. We believe it was the racing hard, but he may still have the medium to do, which puts him on an equal footing versus Nico and Cobra. Well, on an equal footing with Nico, but on an advantageous footing with Cobra, it should be pointed out. Meanwhile, in P5, his opponent chasing after him is V3R's Mostro, 16.9 seconds down in the Supra here, and Mostro also looking to secure a place in this top 5 as we see that he's got Zefix's Dofra behind him, 2.6 seconds down. Keep in mind, however, Mostro has cleared all of the tyre requirements. He opted to run the hard and the medium earlier on in the race, whereas Dofra, by comparison, much like his teammate, has only run one of the mandatory compounds and still has the other to do. So Mostro feeling very safe right now, I think, albeit Dofra is closing him down arm over fist, and that gap is coming down rapidly. 2.4 seconds is that gap at this time. You've then got a 26.5 second gap back to the other V3R driver of Goose in P7, who, much like his teammate, has cleared both of the mandatory compounds and is now running racing softs all the way to the end. And then there's a 3.4 second gap to GT Predator's Kimi, who has come out behind Goose for his recent pit stop and is trying to hunt down Goose as quickly as possible here. Kimi, I believe, is still due to take the hard tyre, but he's already run the race in medium, unless I'm very much mistaken. His teammate, GT Predator's Adri, recently re-promoted to P9 with Breton having had a pit stop, and I believe Adri has also recently come into the pits. Breton dropping back to P10, and I believe it is the case that Breton actually has gone for a short stint on the racing softs here to try and go for a faster lap, and both of these drivers, I believe, have taken the hard and the medium, definitely in the case of Breton, who finds himself all the way down in P10, and then last but not least, 10 seconds behind him is his teammate, T2S Captain Rob, who has had a difficult race so far, but I believe has cleared all of the mandatory compound requirements. But right now, what you can see is that Cobra and Nico are getting ever closer to one another and trying to work together as Bandit is closing that gap down very gradually. But meanwhile, Mostro is being closed up by Dofra here, and I believe Mostro is coming to the end of his stint. He's only got a quarter of it to go, 3 to 4 more laps of Mostro. Now, how long can he hold on versus Dofra, or will he fight Dofra, will be the question. As we look back from Mostro's car right now, and we can see on lap 46 as they go through the Degners in Sector 2 that Dofra is ripping time out of Mostro here as Mostro goes a little bit wide onto the exit curb of the second Degner there, doing a good job to keep it planted to avoid hitting the left-hand exit barrier there. And now Dofra all over the back of the Supra driver. That GTR just coming to life, and the GTR does seem to have been the strongest car for this circuit. It's a monster here at the home circuit, a Japanese circuit, albeit this is Honda's home circuit, not Nissan's. And as Dofra makes his way after Mostro, we can see the two Frenchmen are getting closer and closer, and Dofra makes it good. Oh goodness me, and Mostro there going a tiny bit wide at Spoon and just running onto the exit, onto the entry curve a little bit too much for the second part of Spoon, onto the AstroTurf and having to catch the car. Well caught, that man, but Dofra gained a lot of momentum, and he's going to be made to go to the outside versus Mostro, and Mostro defending to the inside into 130R. And does Dofra go for the cutback here? Well, Mostro goes a little bit wide. They both go a little bit wide onto the runoff area, and they'll slam it down on the brakes here, but both of them pushing on, and Mostro goes deep. He makes a mistake under braking and spins it on the AstroTurf at the Casio Triangle Chicane, and that means Mostro's race has now gone from good to bad to worse, and he's picked up aerodynamic damage on that front bumper with that hit on the wall there. So Mostro, who was running a really solid race, has just compromised all of that. A little mistake under pressure from Dofra, and Dofra has made it, I think. So he's up into P5 right now. The V3R team will be absolutely distraught with that, because Mostro was having a solid race and he's essentially now given the place to Dofra. That's a disaster as Mostro is into the pits and Goose, his teammate, is now coming across the timing line to commence lap 47, and it will be Goose who's going to become the lead driver. And Mostro, to be fair, was coming to the end of his stint, so I think he will be able to turn this around, but he won't avoid to have lost that much time. That was effectively about 8 seconds time lost there by Mostro, with the damage plus also the mistake at the chicane. And that means Kimi now is up into P7. As we see that Mostro comes out of the pits, he's going to be burning that little penalty for the track limits at the Casio Triangle chicane, but he's going to now, I think on a new set of races, obviously he may be tempted to run them to the end, as he has put in 95 litres of fuel, which is a huge amount of fuel. And I think now for V3R's Mostro, it will be a case of go to the end and try to regain all those positions lost, because remember, he does have the strategic advantage of not having any more mandatory compounds to take. As Cobra's into the pits, now will we see a mandatory compound go on for Cobra here? I suspect if we are, it will be the hard, and then he'll come back in immediately to put the medium on to go to the end of the race. As Bandit, meanwhile, the driver that TC are going to be worried about so much, comes around to start lap 48, and Bandit passes Cobra, who's in the pits right now, of course. And what's going to happen here? Well, Bandit, it should be pointed out, is halfway through his current stint, and Nico, 18.5 seconds up the road, has got a little bit less stint life by comparison with Bandit. In fact, Nico will be due for a pit stop soon, as Cobra, I think, has gone to the medium. Now, this means Cobra is going to be running that medium for an extended period of time, we believe. He'll run it probably until there's about 3 minutes remaining, and then switch to the hard for the final lap. But for Cobra right now, this is a critical stint if he's going to run those mediums all the way, because he needs to now every single lap here versus Bandit to have a chance of finishing on that podium. As we understand how the strategy is playing out, of course it may be all chop and change, but we will find out for you in due course, ladies and gentlemen. We'll find out on screen as we see it all play out live. As Doffer right now could also get into this mix, running in P5. He's cleared Mostro, of course, and he is 30.5 seconds ahead of Goose. And to give you an idea of how much time was lost by Mostro there, it's 30.5 seconds to Goose, and Goose is 2.1 seconds ahead of Kimi, who is hunting Goose down, and it's a further 11.5 seconds to Mostro. So that gap is 45 seconds almost between Doffer and Mostro, and that's how much that one little instant has cost Mostro, that one little mistake, and he will be kicking himself for that. What was certain to be a top 5 finish has now become a battle to make sure he can finish as close to the top 5 as possible. And Kimi, I think, will be feeling a bit fighty now, chasing down Goose and closing up to Goose at a good rate of knots here. Kimi getting faster and faster, going deeper and deeper into the race, as we do see that Nico has come into the pits. So we are going to just stay with Kimi for the time being, as we believe that Bandit is going to come through the Casio Triangle chicane and continue up into P2 for the time being. But we can see Kimi really hunting down Goose. And as we hop away, we can see Bandit coming across the timing line right now. To give you an idea, Nico currently being serviced, and they will need to, of course, put fuel in that car, as he has gone to what we suspect will be the other mandatory compounds. I think it's going to be the mediums to finish his race, and Cobra comes back past his teammate, of course, as they swap places once again. And will Nico be on that medium? He's gone to the medium, has Nico, so that will be his final pit stop, we reckon, because Nico's already done the hard. But Cobra right now is in that position where I believe he is due that one additional stop. But Cobra, as he makes his way through the first sector right now, I think we'll be trying to give Nico as much help as possible in terms of getting to the end, giving him slipstream if he can, because he'll know that he is essentially a stint down by comparison with Nico. And we can see that Doffer only 7.2 seconds down on Nico right now, albeit he will be due for a pit stop soon, Doffer. So I don't think he's going to be able to change for the podium right now, but it could all chop and change depending on what happens right at the end of the race. We will wait and see, as Goose is into the pits from P7, and that means he is going to be releasing his teammate up into P7, as Mostro has picked up another half-second penalty for track limits somewhere else around the lap, and will be burning that in short order. But Mostro right now on the charge after a potential top 5 finish. He's going to have to hunt it down, and the first driver on his hit list will be GT Predators Kimi, who is only 10.8 seconds up the road, and we believe is coming up for a pit stop within probably the next 10 minutes, because he hasn't got too much fuel remaining, and that means that he's going to be vulnerable. And we believe that Mostro has fueled to go to the end on his current set of tyres. As we do see, looking further back down the road here, that Doffer right now chasing after our top four as rapidly as he possibly can. And then we look further down and we can see that right now the the two T2F drivers, say that multiple times in quick succession, I dare you, of Driver Benton and Captain Rob having a little bit of racing to get out on circuit, running in formation here, and probably also doing it for the sponsors a little bit. And the team will be pleased to see them running out in formation, albeit they wouldn't want to be in P10 and P11, but it is what it is for them, and they're just going to try and bring this home as best they possibly can as they both make their way up into the Casio Triangle Chicane for the 48th time of asking. But meanwhile, looking further around, of course, as they come through to complete the lap, we can see right now that Bandit really does need to nail the rest of this stint to give himself the best possible position to go hunting after that podium come the final, what we suspect will be the final 14 minutes, given he's got about 2 to 3 laps left on this current stint. But Bandit really pushing hard right now and trying to punch the ticket as much as possible, whereas Cobra right now is in that position where, given the fact we believe he's due for at least one more pit stop, he's got to try and get this stint nailed down, and Nico the same. But further back, we can see that Kimi in P6, making his way around again to start lap number 50. He will have Mostro on his mind, of course, knowing that Mostro will be on his final stint, or believing he's on his final stint, and Kimi is due one more pit stop. But what can Kimi do to essentially split the V3R drivers as he comes to the end of this race? We will find out, but I believe it's going to be a tall order where Kimi may be able to hold off Goose, but not Mostro, who is closing down. And you can see Mostro going for a very aggressive attacking line there into turn 2, and definitely trying to milk as much pace out of that Supra right now with 20 minutes to go. And Goose only 21 seconds down right now. Kimi will be vulnerable should he pit in the near future to Goose potentially jumping him. As we can see behind in P10, that driver Breton right now feeling a bit of pressure for his teammate. I think they're going to go racing against one another as they make their way through Spoon once again. And you can see that Breton at this point in the race just not feeling as comfortable in terms of race pace compared to his teammate, and they're making their way now in the long run down towards 130R. And we'll see that the Aston Martins, whilst they're both equal machinery, Captain Rob will always have that slipstream advantage, and that will give him the pace to get ever closer to the back of his teammate as they come through 130R. Will there be a move from Captain Rob this time round? No, there's not. Instead, he holds in sequence and he holds in line. They both take the racing line through the chicane and now make their way through to lap number 50 here. But I'm sure a move's going to kick off sometime soon between the two of them, and we'll try and catch it when it does kick off, of course. As Dofra comes into the pits for what is P5, and I believe this will, well, I say it will potentially release Kimi. Will it at the same time? Because Dofra right now, well, he's in the pits as we speak, and it's a 37.5 second gap between Kimi and Dofra, and I think that actually that could give Dofra the room to play it as we switch back to the pits. So we can see they're putting the fuel in the car right now, and I think Dofra's done enough here to jump Kimi, which is so that'll put him into P5 as he comes out on the soft end, and Kimi into the pits. So this does mean that Kimi is out of contention for a top 5 place. This will promote Mostro, of course, back up to P6, and now Mostro has got a gap of what is effectively, we believe, about 14 seconds to hunt down Dofra. In fact, it's less than that as we see our timing screens get updated. So Mostro has got to hunt down 12.2 seconds to Dofra over the remaining 16 minutes. It's going to be a tall order, I reckon. But if anyone can do it, Mostro can. As we see that his teammate Goose, I think, is going to jump Kimi, or is he? As he comes down the start-finish line here, and he's definitely on his final stint. Kimi on the left-hand side of your picture, and you can see that Goose has jumped Kimi, and Kimi now has to attack Goose as much as possible to get the place back. He'll have to do it out on circuit, because unless we've made a mistake in terms of strategy in which tyres have been used, Kimi now has got to hunt down Goose, and he cannot get it done via strategy as we see Bandit into the pits a little bit prematurely. He had the fuel to go a bit deeper, but this is Bandit reacting to the fact that the TC drivers are now coming towards their final stints as well and on suboptimal tyres. So I think what Bandit is doing is he's pitting a little bit earlier because he feels he can get the most pace out of that racing soft tyre with 15.5 minutes to go, and that will be the optimum final stint for him. So it is going to be a chase to the finish where Bandit will be approximately, we reckon, about what is 6 to 7, well not 6 to 7 seconds, about 10 seconds down on our podium drivers right now, Cobra and Nico. And Bandit is coming out of the pits, and that gap, as he's got some traffic out ahead of him, this is not ideal for Bandit, and that traffic will need to get out of his way as soon as possible. But Bandit finds himself 12.5 seconds down on Nico JVT. So the gap effectively that Bandit has got to overhaul over the remaining laps, as we see that already one of the T2F drivers immediately gets out of the way of Bandit, and he'll be asking for the other drivers to get out of the way with the blue flag shortly. But he's got to hunt down 12.5 seconds to Nico and a further 2 seconds to Cobra. So 15 seconds Bandit's got to rip out of the racing medium tyres of the TC team as they make their way around for what we suspect to be approximately 7 to 8 laps remaining in this race. So it is all going to come down to this final stint. What can Bandit do? As Doffer right now, 24.5 seconds down on his teammate. Well, I think Doffer's done more than enough to make sure he's guaranteed this P5, with Mostro making that mistake from Doffer's pressure earlier on in this final half now. And Mostro, of course, will be doing everything he can to hunt down Doffer, but I just do not think that he's going to have it in him, given the fact he's on slightly worn racing softs already and he's got a lot of fuel in that car. I think it's time for damage consolidation here and just simply... damage limitation, not consolidation, and just focus on getting the car home in P6, because if the V3R guys can get P6 and P7, they'll be very pleased with that result, I'm sure. Albeit Goose, I think, has had a little bit of an off here, because Kimi is catching up to Goose like wildfire. What has happened to Goose? Can we see what's happened somewhere? Ah, that explains it. Goose went wide there at turn 2, but caught the car in time, and that's how Kimi's closed it up so rapidly. And Kimi is on full attack here, and with only 14 minutes to go, Kimi is on fire right now, trying to hunt down Goose. The Predator is attacking the poor animal there as he's going after Goose, and you can see that Kimi is all over the back of him. He smells blood. There's blood in the water, and he wants that P7 back to try and split the V3R drivers right now, and he is going all for it, is Kimi, and you love to see it as we ride on board with the Belgian driver here. You're seeing it from his perspective as Mehdi comes into the pits for what is suspected to be his final pit stop, where he'll jump over to the racing mediums. Although he does have more than enough time to play around with going on to the mediums for one lap and then the softs for a final lap, as the fastest lap has now been set as a 57.002, almost into the 56s for Mehdi. That is absolutely phenomenal in terms of fastest lap, and that will get him the bonus points as well for fastest lap. As we can see that Kimi right now not able to close up to Goose through Spoon, and now losing out as a result in the run down to 130R because of the Mazda's lack of straight line speed. As they come down towards the corner then, and we can see that Goose right now just able to maintain enough distance as Kimi makes his way through the corner as well. And coming into the heavy braking zone, you can see how much Kimi has been so aggressive on the brakes there and trying to get as close as possible to the back of Goose. And I think he recognises he needs to be approximately 4 tenths off of Goose to be able to benefit from that slipstream. It's not enough to be 6 tenths down, and Goose weaving a little bit on the start-finish straight here to be able to break the toe and just make sure Kimi can't catch up. I'd argue from Goose's perspective, you don't need to weave because Kimi just doesn't have the straight line speed. Just drive your normal line, because Goose right now in doing so will be able to maintain that gap and make Kimi's life an absolute hell in terms of how hard he's got to work that Mazda to catch up to P7. But we will keep our eyes on that, of course, ladies and gentlemen, as we see in the hunt for P2, Cobra right now 1.7 seconds ahead of his teammate. These two working together, of course, as Cobra is making his way around on those racing medium tyres, as is Nico. And Bandit already clear of the back markers of T2F. We can see that he's only 9.6 seconds down on Nico and Cobra right now and charging on those racing softs. He's got 12 minutes to go, has Bandit, and he's got to try and rip out what is effectively 2 seconds a lap to be within striking distance. And to give you an idea, on that last lap, on lap 54, that was a 158.1 from Bandit, whereas for Nico, it was a 159.7, so that's 1.3 seconds the delta between the two. Bandit is almost doing enough. He just needs to get a little bit more out of those tyres on the next 3 to 4 laps, and he will definitely be within striking distance right at the end. It's all going to come together, and Mostro meanwhile in that comfortable P6, and Goose started to pull a little bit away from Kimi behind. That gap now 1.1 seconds, albeit Kimi has had a much better run out of Spoon by comparison with Goose. But as soon as they get on this straight, once again, look how Kimi just cannot close up because of the straight line speed difference there, and Kimi as a result literally having to strip those tyres bare for all their worth in the braking zones and the cornering zones at the moment, because he just hasn't got the pace elsewhere. Meanwhile, we can see that GT Predators Adri, the teammate of Kimi in P9, in a lonely P9 right now, and driver Breton and Captain Rob are back markers right now, making their way around, and they've got one more scheduled stop about to come up, I think, the both of them, as we can jump on board their telemetry. Well, it's Captain Rob who's got one more scheduled stop to go, and driver Breton has got no more stops to go because Captain Rob has got barely any fuel in the car. I think these two just wanted to run around on circuit for a little bit, but now they're coming towards the end and they'll go their separate ways once again out on track. But right now, I really do think it's the case that both Cobra and Nico will be trying to get as much as possible out of these tyres, because the medium can be abused, mind you. You can see they're already taking sizable chunks out the tyre and braking very heavily into the Casio Triangle chicane. You can see those carbon ceramic brake discs lighting up like wildfire there as they make their way through to complete lap number 54, and onto 55 they go. But they have got the pressure bearing down on them, and that pressure now is only 7.4 seconds away. And as Bandit comes out of the final corner to lap 55, he can look forward and he can see them off in the distance. You can see them as we ride on board of him right now. They're just a little bit off in the distance, and Bandit will be motivated by this. Expect him to go even faster now, and those tyres are in a really good condition right now. Bandit's got at least 3 more laps where he can absolutely abuse those racing soft tyres before they start to hit their performance cliff. As we can see that coming into the pits right now is Captain Rob as they go for their final pit stop and put the fuel in the car. But meanwhile, in that battle for P7, we can see that Kimi is trying to get ever closer to Goose. That gap oscillating around 1.1 to 0.9 seconds. It's down to 0.9 seconds again right now. But again, I think Goose will feel secure so long as that gap doesn't come down to 0.6 seconds. As, hold on a second, Mostro coming into the pits here. Why on earth is Mostro coming in? Has he picked up damage? There's no damage on the car, but I thought that Mostro had done both of his mandatory tyres here. This means Mostro is going to potentially be losing out on what is P6. Unless what Mostro's been asked to do is effectively pit and then just simply put a fresh set on, so that way he can go after Kimi and take the pressure off of Goose and essentially get in the way of Kimi here. But this is very odd. No, Mostro's coming out of the pits here. And he's gone to a fresh set of racing sauce. So perhaps Mostro felt he had the window to gap it and is trying to go for the fastest lap, or perhaps to give his teammates a little bit of support, and perhaps to try and, if Kimi were to get past Goose, then Mostro would essentially drive as a wall to try and hold Kimi up to get Goose back into the fight for P7. But that is a little bit of surprise there, but you can see the potential tactics being played up by Mostro. He had the window, so they may as well go for it, and I think he is going to try and help his teammate out here if he possibly can. As you can see, he definitely is, and Mostro in fact lifting off there, and I think he's trying to give Goose a little bit of a window to operate with here. I think he's trying to give Goose a push along, so that way effectively what he can do with Kimi is hold Kimi up as much as possible and give Goose the security to run away with P6 and swap at the end potentially. But Kimi right now will be getting within striking distance, but Mostro acting as that rear gunner here. We can see the tactics being deployed, albeit Mostro needs to get used to running on those new soft tyres, which he's not at the moment. But Kimi, you can see all over the back of Mostro, but this is team tactics coming into play here, and Kimi of course will not be happy with that, because he have wanted just a simple 1 versus 1 versus Goose, but it's all chop and change here. That is one decision that I've never seen before in all of my sim racing commentating career, real world racing folks, this type of strategy. But if it works, this is going to be a phenomenal team play for V3R, and one to talk about for the rest of the championship as they make their way down the straight here. And you can see that Mostro running as close as possible to his teammate, and essentially trying to give him the move along here to say, can you please push a little bit harder, Goose, because you need to work it a bit harder. But Mostro's got to be so careful, because if he makes another mistake, it's going to be all in tatters as Medi comes into the pits to make his final pit stop, and it will be to go to the medium, as Medi has set the fastest lap of a 56.306. I don't think you need to do any more, Medi. You just don't need to do it anymore. That's just ridiculous, but a nice lap all the same. Bandit right now, however, as we come back to that chase for the podium, Bandit 2.7 seconds off of Nico and still closing with 6 minutes to go. He's going to have 3 more laps, I believe, and what that will mean after this lap is that Bandit is well within striking distance to the 2 TC drivers. It's just how long they can hold him off, and of course Nico will be the rear gunner here. Can he hold off the fast charging Raccoon of Bandit? Further back, Doffer right now in a lonely P5, but I think he'll be very happy to be in a lonely P5 in the fact he's got a top 5 finish here, a good set of points for the team. And Goose right now, well, Goose being pressured by his teammate, but you can see how Mostro effectively giving his teammate a little bit of a push along there, just a tiny little bump there on his teammate. And I think Goose is trying to think in two minds right now. Is my teammate trying to overtake me, or is he trying to get in the way? What is he doing? And I think Mostro's just trying to say to Goose, or trying to get on the radio to say to Goose, look, Goose, just drive your normal line. I'm pushing you along as much as I possibly can. You can see they're trying to work it together, and Kimmy is literally all over the back of Mostro, but can't find a way through here. As meanwhile, in that hunt for P3 right now from Bandit's perspective, as we look back from Nico's car, you can see Bandit is getting ever closer. And while Sector 1 is a handling sector, those racing soft tyres on Bandit's car are offering him so much potential, albeit they're starting to come to the end of their optimum window right now. So as a result, Bandit is effectively now starting to hit that point where he's going to be on the knife edge of the tyre life, and he's got to try and squeeze every little bit out. But of course, he'll be prone now to a potential bit of snap oversteer here, or a little bit of understeer into the corners. Particularly Degner 2, he can be vulnerable to some understeer, and he did actually get a tiny bit there going into the corner. We saw that there, the gap just opened up a little bit before he got on the throttle, and the turbo of that GTR could be unleashed. But you can see Bandit getting closer. He is putting the pressure on. It's 4.5 minutes to go. It's all coming together, and Cobra is 2.3 seconds up the road. I think if Nico could just hold Bandit up for a slight portion of time, even if it's just for half a lap, then Cobra will be safe in P2. He'll have got second place, but whether Nico's able to hold Bandit up at all, that will be the big question. As we see, they're coming through smooth right now, and Bandit is in that slipstream. He is going to be very rapid down here as they charge down towards 130R. We jump on board with Bandit, and we look forward from his car, and you're going to see that Mazda is going to appear in your front view mirror view as rapidly as possible, and he's getting so close to the back as they come through 130R. And Bandit really charging down here towards the Casio Triangle chicane, coming out of here, and Nico goes a little bit deep. That's going to cost him a huge amount of time. Bandit has to lift out slightly, but Nico now, as Cobra comes into the pits, remember folks, Cobra didn't do the hard tyre earlier on, so this is a disaster for Team TC. They're going to lose second place to Bandit, who goes side by side with Nico, charging down towards turn 1 they go, and the GTR has it, as Cobra has to put on the hard tyre, and Nico has got no response to Bandit here. There's no way that he can hold the GTR up on the straight. That little error into Casio just taking away any advantage that Nico had, and this is a disaster, as we can see that Cobra is now onto that hard tyre, and he's got a 6.5 second window, we believe, to Doffer, but Doffer will be motivated by this. He'll know he's got 2 laps to go, and that Cobra is on the hard compound, and it is approximately 2 to 2.5 seconds slower than the soft, even when the soft is worn. So right now, Cobra could be vulnerable to losing P4 if Dofra has a monster lap, and Cobra just cannot get those tyres turned on. And the thing about the hard as well is it takes the best part of approximately a lap to switch on. So Dofra will be absolutely salivating at that prospect. As you can see, meanwhile in the battle for P6, we've looked away for it for some time, but Goose right now in P6 holding on, but Mostro getting ever closer to the back of it once again, and you can see that Kimmy is really all over the back of these guys. He's only 3 tips down, and now he is in that window, but Mostro will be getting the slipstream of Goose and be giving those little gentle kiss taps on the rear bumper, and Kimmy looks to remove on the inside into turn 1, but I think it's more to try and put Mostro off and make Mostro make a mistake here than anything else, and Mostro almost falls to it there. You can see went a little bit deep into turn 2 as they've still got 2 laps to go, these two we believe, well sorry, these 3 drivers we believe, and Goose is really starting to hit the cliff in terms of tyres right now. You can see how much Goose is struggling on those racing softs, whereas his teammate on those fresh tyres essentially nice and comfortable, and Kimmy on slightly better tyres than Goose, but nowhere near as good as Mostro. I think Mostro in a minute is going to have to make the executive decision. Does he continue to try and support his teammate? And hold on a second, Nico's into the pits as well. What on earth is happening here? We thought Nico had cleared his hard tyre towards the start of the race. Does this mean that effectively Cobra's going to be coming through soon? Dofra's only 5.4 seconds down, and this could mean that Nico is vulnerable to Dofra here, who has cleared both of the mandatory compounds as far as we're aware, but this is shaping up to be madness as Nico comes out onto his final lap right now on the hard tyre. So we did not see Nico use the hard earlier on. My mistake. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. The TC drivers are leaving the hard until very last, and it has not worked out because Bandit has jumped them. As meanwhile, in this battle for P6, we can see that Kimi has fallen back a little bit, and Mostro once again supporting his teammate as much as possible. And in that hunt for the podium from Doffer's perspective right now, or at least a P4, he's too far back, I think, to be able to make something happen here. That 4.5 second window will be too much room to close up on this final lap, i.e. the lap that he will be completing. As meanwhile, our race leader, Medi, goes on to his 60th and final lap with half a minute to go of this race. It has been absolutely topsy-turvy right at the end here, folks. You couldn't predict it. And the teamwork as well, as shown by the V3R drivers as they go on to their final lap here, and we look further back to see who is potentially going to be finishing their race. I believe it is going to be, correct me if I'm wrong here, as we see that Captain Rob has had an off. We're just looking through the order right now. I believe the first driver then to complete their race tonight will be Zephyx's Bandit, who, having started quite a way in the midfield, has made it work with an aggressive approach, using the medium and the hard relatively early on, and Bandit using the soft all the way to the end, being able to jump the Team TC drivers, and he'll be coming home in a hard-earned but well-deserved P2 as he makes his way out of the final corner. Second place goes to Zephyx Bandit on lap 59. A great job there. And as we look further down the order here, we can see that next up, coming across the line, it will be GT Predators Adrian P9, and not the greatest day at the office for Adri. It will then be T2S driver Breton on lap 58 as he comes around to complete his race, and then Captain Rob comes along. Hold on a second, folks, we're just trying to find out, and it will be, I believe, TC Nico Kono in P3 ahead of his teammate Cobra, and Doffer not able to capitalise on Team TC strategy, and in the hunt for what is effectively, we believe, P6 right now. We can see that Goose holding on for the time being as the driver is coming across the line right now. We've got Captain Rob, who is coming around to come home in 11th place, last of our running drivers. Our race winner, Medi, on lap 60 by the margin of 1 minute and 9 seconds. Congratulations to our race winner. And then in the battle for P6, we can see that Goose and Mostro coming up towards 130R right now. Only a couple more corners to go. Mostro has given it everything to support his teammate. He's worked so hard with him, and it will be the case as they come through the final chicane and through the final corner. The Goose comes home in P6. V3R work it together for P6 and P7 as they come across the line, and it will be Kimi in P8. That is your race order, ladies and gentlemen, your finishing order. Congratulations to all our drivers, but to our race winner, V1's Medi from France. What a phenomenal end to the race. It was a quiet one, this one. We're not going to lie about the fact that things really spaced out over the course of the mid-period of the race, but towards the end it all came together. But here are your final results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. V1 Medi are winning by the region of Wales, it says, a lap there of 1 minute and 9 seconds, the only driver to do a 60th lap, ahead of Zephyx Bandit and TC Nico JBT round off our podium. TC's Cobra 45 coming fourth, and Zephyx Dofra coming fifth, round off our top five. The fastest lap went to V1's Medi, a 156.306 on lap 55. And it should be pointed out that we had two retirements in this race, two DNFs, that being of IGTSH's Padge C, and also we had the retirement of V1 Miro, and we also had the non-start of IGTSH's Kende, who was our 14th driver, who wasn't able to take part today. But well done to all of our drivers, of course. A cracking race, as we say that to all of them. And we believe that Cobra actually experienced a pit bug at some point, which is why he had what happened occur in terms of not able... Well, he's had some sort of issue, which is why he had to do that additional pit stop. But Cobra right now being caught out by some sort of pit bug, which is very unfortunate. But all the same, What a cracking race and some shock results right at the end there. Well, nonetheless, it has been a pleasure to bring the first round of the semi-final for the Binome Manufacturer Elite Endurance Cup to you for Season 6. I have been your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and be sure to come back the same time next week for round number 2 of the semi-final. We'll be back here with Paul B, much like the first time. And, well, until then, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.